Chapter 423. Cave of the Saint Ruler. After hearing Qian Yun's warning, the other elder nodded his head and formed a meter-long machete. With a wave of his hand, the blade came swinging down toward Jian Chen. At the same time, Qian Yun had taken out his sword to attack him as well. Jian Chen waved his own sword, causing the origin energy to come flying out from the blade, like a wave toward the two men. Brandishing his right hand, the origin energy traveled toward the two elders with an azure and violet trail. Heeding Qian Yun's advice, the other Heaven Saint Master made sure he didn't touch the azure and violet origin energy coming at him. Retrieving his weapon, the elder leaped back for a moment before charging at Jian Chen with his machete flying at him in quick succession. Jian Chen's origin energy completely smashed through the projectile sword qi sent by the elder and washed over the area with the remaining energy, ravaging the place with dust. Smoke filled the air, and things in the palace were sent flying about due to the energy, all devouring sword qi. Qian Yun bellowed as his sword began to flash bright with power. In the next moment, a meter-long piece of sword qi came stabbing through the sky before speeding toward Jian Chen. An oppressing amount of pressure could be felt as the sword qi came out, locking Jian Chen into place. This one move from Qian Yun was evidently an Earth-tier battle skill. Moving his body to dodge, Jian Chen saw that the all-devouring sword qi had locked onto him. He couldn't shake off the skill, meaning that Jian Chen could only try to destroy it. Jian Chen's eyes flashed once as he began to bend the fire element in the world to his control. 3 swords materialized from the fire and began to bring the temperature of the area to a boiling point. Whoosh! 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 The 3 blades zoomed through the air toward the all-devouring sword qi battle skill from Qian Yun. Bang! The 2 sides met with a loud explosion and blasted the entire area with the impact. Flames burst out everywhere in a spectacular sight, destroying parts of the palace and killing several nearby soldiers who were too close to the blast. In the chaos of the palace, even the elite trained soldiers could easily lose their lives here. Diving for shelter to hide behind, the soldiers tried their best to survive. Wrapping himself with the wind element, Jian Chen began to charge at Qian Yun with his origin energy sword at the ready. Qian Yun looked at Jian Chen for a moment before turning to look at the extremely damaged palace. Without hesitation, he flew away from the palace to lead Jian Chen away. Jian Chen's eyes flashed with the azure and violet glow, once more with each color appearing in both eyes, giving him a bone-chilling glare to whoever could see it. Suddenly, the pieces of stone began to fly up into the air and shoot straight at Qian Yun with frightening speed. Qian Yun had seen Jian Chen's strength for himself when he was at the Pingyang Kingdom's stronghold, so he didn't dare belittle Jian Chen. Saint Force began to rush out of his body to serve as a protective shield to protect himself against the stones. The azure and violet stones chased after Qian Yun with a terrifying amount of power. As they impacted against his Saint Force, the shield shook once before repelling the stones in succession. Jian Chen's origin energy transformed into an azure light that began to surround all of the stones he had shot before. In a flash, they flew back toward Qian Yun and stabbed him between his eyes with the origin energy aiding them. Now that he was surrounded by the stones, Qian Yun had no other choice but to use his saint weapon to try and block Jian Chen's strike. Ding! With a clear crack, Qian Yun's saint weapon received 2 new jagged holes, causing Qian Yun to spit out a mouthful of blood. As soon as his first strike landed, Jian Chen chased after him with a second strike, his origin energy transforming into a stunning ray of light that was aimed between Qian Yun's eyes with deadly precision. Qian Yun's face fell as he realized that he would have to use his saint weapon to defend himself once more to cover his retreat. When the origin energy slammed into Qian Yun's saint weapon, another crack became visible. Following another mouthful of blood, Qian Yun's protective barrier could no longer be sustained and disappeared instantly. As soon as it dropped, the floating stones nearby perforated into his body and stained his body with blood. Qian Yun could only let out a howl of pain before dropping down from the skies. Qian Yun! The other elder cried out in shock before chasing after Qian Yun's body. Jian Chen sneered as his killing intent spiked once more. Pointing his finger, all of the floating stones turned around and flew at the remaining elder. Shouting out loud, the elder burst with saint force and used it to repel all of the incoming stones coming at him. Jian Chen's left hand unclenched, materializing a sword made from fire. With a flick of his hand, the intensely hot sword shot toward the elder's barrier in an attempt to destroy it. Bang! After the smoke cleared away, the elder could be seen with blood dripping down from his pale face, before falling down to the ground along with Qian Yun. Jian Chen's body flew down after the two with his origin energy sword shooting for the two. His eyes were icily cold with killing intent apparent in them. It was clear to see that Jian Chen did not plan on letting the two go. Seeing Jian Chen pursue them, the elder with Qian Yun had a desperate look on his face. After this exchange, he finally understood how strong Jian Chen was, and how futile it was for him to try to defend himself against him. This is the consequence of your Qiangan kingdom meddling in this war. Today your imperial palace will perish, and your Qiangan kingdom will fall. Jian Chen spoke. Halt! A panicked voice called out as a large group of people came rushing toward them. Judging from their clothes, they were all high-ranking men, and the middle-aged man leading the charge was wearing an eye-catching dragon robe of purple and gold. When the group saw the two heavily injured men, they all turned extremely grave in the face. The man with the dragon robe knelt in front of Qian Yun and asked, "Royal Ancestor, are you all right?" Qian Yun lay on the ground powerless with a vacant look toward the sky. "This is all my fault. If I had not coveted Chang Wuji's heaven-tier battle skills so much, then today's events never would have happened." "Royal Ancestor, don't say such words. This is the fault of our Qiangan kingdom, being weaker than before." The man wearing the dragon robe grew sad before turning to meet Jian Chen. "Senior, I know you came here in regards with the Jessen kingdom. I, the king, will proclaim that our Qiangan kingdom will no longer meddle with the Jessen kingdom. So please forgive my ancestor for this slight." There was a cold smirk on Jian Chen's face as he spoke. "Your words are of no use. Today I shall flatten your imperial palace and destroy what the Qiangan kingdom stands for." Jian Chen's words caused everyone to grow serious. By now, no one doubted that Jian Chen's words were serious. After defeating two Heaven Saint Masters, an individual like this would be able to do as he said. There was no one left in this group that could go against an entity that could bend the world's energy to his will like a Heaven Saint Master. Every person gathered here belonged to the higher echelons of the Qiangan kingdom and supported the kingdom with their skills. If they were to all die, then the Qiangan kingdom would truly be killed off in name. Growing troubled, the king of the Qiangan kingdom tried thinking of a solution. With a bright gleam of his eyes he spoke. "Senior, if you spare my Qiangan kingdom, then I will tell you a secret." At this, Qian Yun instantly knew what the king was speaking about. Panicking he spoke. "No, you mustn't tell him that. Royal Ancestor, if our Qiangan kingdom were to disappear, then what is the point of us safeguarding this secret?" Even the king's face had a helpless look to it. Evidently he too did not wish to tell anyone this secret. Jian Chen's eyes flashed curiously. "What secret is that?" "We know of the location of the cave of a saint ruler. Senior, if you promise to spare our Qiangan kingdom and promise to not make any excuse to attack our kingdom again, then I will tell you of its location." The king spoke with an anxious look. Upon hearing of the fact that there was a cave of a saint ruler, Jian Chen's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. The killing intent began to recede from his body as he began to calm down. With some hesitation, Jian Chen spoke. "If the location of this saint ruler's cave is of some ravaged area, would I not be falling for a trick of yours?" "Absolutely not." The king had a serious look on his face. "The owner of this cave belonged to an imperial protector of our Qiangan kingdom 1,000 years ago. At the end of his lifespan, he died while meditating in the cave. But before he died, he had laid down an array to protect the cave's entrance, meaning that no one has ever been able to enter the cave for 1,000 years. Chapter 424, Kendall? Absolutely not. The king had a serious look on his face. The owner of this cave belonged to an imperial protector of our Qiangan kingdom 1,000 years ago. At the end of his lifespan, he died while meditating in the cave. But before he died, he had laid down an array to protect the cave's entrance, meaning that no one has ever been able to enter the cave for 1,000 years. Jian Chun was silent for a moment as his eyes shined brightly, but a look of hesitation still remained on his face. He was deeply intrigued by the words of the king, and if his words were true and there was a cave of a saint ruler, there would definitely be a ruler armament and skeleton within the cave. These two distinct things were filled with the energy of a saint ruler, who died in a seated meditation. Every saint ruler at the 9th heavenly layer would leave behind a tremendous amount of energy within their skeleton, and would also leave behind their saint weapon. Both of these were priceless treasures within the Tianyuan continent, and even the strongest clans wouldn't have such an item. However, there was a huge barrier in the words of the Qiangan Kingdom's king in regards to the cave. With no one being able to enter for 1,000 years, Jian Chun couldn't guarantee that it would remain in its pristine state after so long. If there was another expert that had managed to enter and take away the precious goods within it, it would be his loss. Seeing Jian Chun's hesitation, the king instantly knew what he was thinking about and grew anxious. Whether he could protect the Qiangan Kingdom or not depended on if Jian Chun was interested enough in this saint ruler's cave. Senior, the cave of a saint ruler would most definitely contain many precious items that even I am not aware of. I use this secret in exchange for the safety of my kingdom. You are at no disadvantage for this. And this is a secret that only the king of the Qiangan Kingdom and the royal ancestor knows. If you kill the both of us, then you will never know the location of the saint ruler's cave. The king spoke anxiously, trying to convince him quickly. Jian Chun continued to debate with himself for an even longer amount of time, before at last succumbing to his curiosity. Agreeing with the Qiangan Kingdom's king, he spoke. If what you tell me about the cave is true, I will agree to spare your Qiangan Kingdom. Senior, you must promise me that you will not make trouble for my Qiangan Kingdom in the future. As long as my Qiangan Kingdom is safe, I will tell you the location of this cave. The king was no idiot, and spoke again to make sure of the safety of his kingdom. He was worried that after Jian Chun entered the cave, he would later find some other excuse to attack the Qiangan Kingdom. Jian Chun naturally understood the king's concerns and nodded without hesitation. I will agree to your conditions. Hearing this, the king let out a sigh in relief. Although the cave of the saint ruler was top secret, it did not supersede the importance of his kingdom. There was no need to safeguard a secret if it meant his kingdom were to be destroyed. Furthermore, this cave had a strong array formation that prevented anyone from entering. Qian Yun had tried to enter many times before, but to no avail. Thus the secret was one they could not use, or had no need of. If they couldn't use it or collect the treasures within it, it was a useless thing to protect and negligible in comparison to their kingdom. Afterward, Jian Chun followed the king into his study, and was given a map. Senior, the location of the cave is located here. There will be an array formation protecting the cave from entry. I entrust this map to you and hope that you will abide by our agreement. Jian Chun took the map and looked it over carefully. He realized that instead of the cave being located at the center of the kingdom, it was in fact several 100,000 kilometers southwest in a mountain range. Putting away the map, Jian Chun spoke. I hope that you are not lying to me. If I find out this map is false, I will not forgive this mistake. Please do not worry, Senior. This map is definitely authentic. My royal ancestor has visited this cave many times before, but was never able to enter. The king swore. Jian Chun wasted no words with him, and left the area. He benefited greatly from the Qiangan Kingdom. He had no idea that he would be able to obtain such a secret that was the cave of a saint ruler. This was a secret that would make every clan on the continent fight over to obtain. After Jian Chun had left, the pale-faced Qian Yun walked into the room with a badly bruised look. There was blood all over his clothes, completely voiding him from his previously scholarly look. The king of the Qiangan Kingdom looked at Qian Yun with concern. Royal ancestor, are you fine? Qian Yun sat down in a nearby chair and spoke dimly. Ai, this sin of mine has involved the Qiangan Kingdom regrettably. Royal ancestor, please do not say such words. Our Qiangan Kingdom did not have enough people to protect it, that's all. The king spoke in consolation. Qian Yun sighed. Qian Feng, the cave of Kenaton has been revealed, meaning we no longer need to safeguard its secrets. The array formation will do its job. Even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master would find it difficult to enter it. We cannot allow this to just be given to the Jessen kingdom. When I am healed, I shall go report this to the clans. Royal ancestor, would this not anger that expert? The king spoke in concern. Hearing this, Qian Yun's eyes flashed coldly. This is a secret we cannot tell those clans foolishly, but I will exchange it for that man's life. After Jian Chun left the imperial palace, he began to travel back to the Jessen kingdom. Although he had originally come here with the intent of destroying the palace, instead he had profited from this venture for the future. An hour later, a small city could be seen. This was the second-class city Jianchen stayed in last time. Seeing the second-class city, Jianchen couldn't help but think back to the inn he had stayed in, and the shop owner. At that time when he first saw the mother and son, he had felt that the two looked quite similar to someone he had seen before. As Jianchen floated overhead, he began to descend down into the city, right in front of a crowded street. The originally noisy street instantly became quiet. A Heaven Saint Master appearing on the streets caused a giant tremor of shock throughout, causing everyone to stare at Jianchen. There was surprise and respect reflected in their eyes. Out of the 700 million population of the Qiangan Kingdom, there was only 8 Heaven Saint Masters. Thus, the chances of a Heaven Saint Master coming to this second-class city was extremely rare. It would be lucky if one came every 100 years. So when Jianchen descended down from the skies, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Jianchen looked around for a moment before wrapping himself up with the wind element and disappearing from the streets in a fast blur of speed. It had only been a little over 2 hours since Jianchen had left the city, so it didn't take long for Jianchen to arrive back at the inn he had stayed at. Walking into the inn, Jianchen was stunned at what he saw. The inn was in disarray with all of the tables and stools broken into splintered pieces with bloodstains everywhere. Sitting at one of the counters, the shop owner of the inn was holding her head between her hands while crying out in grief. On her clothes, several footprints could be seen. Quickly walking forward, Jianchen squatted down to where the shop owner was. "Shopkeeper, what has happened? Who did all of this?" Tilting her head up, the shop owner's puffy red eyes were brimming with tears. Upon recognizing Jianchen, her face registered him with shock and fury, before quickly restraining her emotions. Immediately kowtowing her head to him, she pleaded, "My lord, I beg of you. You must help my son. Please help rescue my son." Jianchen helped the shop owner up and spoke. "Shopkeeper, what happened here?" "My lord, this was the work of the Yangji sect. After being bullied last night, the Yangji sect came back earlier today for revenge. As they were smashing up the place, my son tried to stop them, but was taken back with them as a result." The shop owner cried out in grief. Hearing this, Jianchen's face grew grim, as he realized the folly of his actions. Because of him, the inn had been involved. "My son, my poor child, you cannot let anything happen to you. You are of my flesh and bone. If you die before your mother, then your mother doesn't wish to live any longer. Kendall, wretched Kendall, where did you go? After leaving for so many years, our child has been taken by the Yangji sect. You conscience-lacking Kendall, if you don't return, then don't even bother thinking about your wife and child." The shop owner wailed with helplessness. Upon hearing the name of Kendall, Jianchen immediately froze up as he looked at the shop owner in alarm. "What did you say? Kendall, did you just say Kendall?" Chapter 425. Saving a life. The grieving shop owner did not take note of the abnormality in Jianchen's words and continued to bawl. "My lord, I beg of you, you must save my only son. If anything happens to my child, then I have no desire to live anymore." The shop owner was an ordinary citizen with no strong backing, meaning the Yangji sect had no problems dealing with her. Right now she could only hope that Jianchen would help her. She knew that he did not fear them, meaning he had some sort of power or background. Jianchen grabbed onto the shoulders of the shop owner and stared carefully at the shop owner. "What did you just say, Kendall? Are you talking about Kendall the mercenary? Could you be his family members?" Jianchen's body began to tremble with emotion. The family of Kendall had always been his biggest regret, and weighed on his mind heavily. At several points, this regret had ate away at Jian Chen's mind. But now that he had finally news on Kendall's family, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Reacting to Jian Chen's words at last, the shop owner wiped away her tears and spoke to Jian Chen skeptically. "My lord, do you know of my Kendall? He is my husband and father to my sons." Jian Chen sucked in a sharp breath of air before trying to calm himself. Closing his eyes slowly, he couldn't help but think back to Uncle Kendall's appearance before slowly bringing his hands up from the shop owner's shoulders. Suddenly, the energy of the world began to rush into the inn before forming a brilliant glow of light around Jian Chen's hands. In a moment, the entire inn was filled with this energy. Looking at the magical glow that Jian Chen seemed to be doing, the shop owner had never seen such a sight before. She could only stare with wide eyes as Jian Chen's act of magic continued to captivate her. Not too long after, the face of a man could be seen in the light. By using his control of the world energy, Jian Chen was able to use the energy of the world to recreate a picture of Kendall's face. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes and looked at the shop owner. Just as he was about to speak, the shop owner cried out in shock. "Kendall, that is my Kendall. My lord, have you seen my Kendall?" The shop owner was beside herself with joy. She had not seen Kendall for many years now, and was still deeply concerned for him. Upon seeing the shop owner's recognition of Kendall, Jian Chen finally confirmed the mother's identity. Trying to stay calm, he spoke to confirm it one more time. "Auntie, please look carefully. Is this truly your husband?" "There's no doubt at all. He is my Kendall. My lord, have you seen my Kendall? Do you know where he is? Why has he not come home in so many years and callously left his wife and child alone to fight for their own survival?" The shop owner cried out once more with a new wave of tears. Jian Chen's attitude toward the shop owner drastically changed now. Hastily holding the shop owner up, he spoke with concern. "Auntie, please sit down first. Are you wounded? Did they do anything to you?" Jian Chen's tone became warmer, and when he looked at the footprints on her clothes, Jian Chen felt a righteous fury wash over his entire body. Right now, the woman in front of him was the family of Kendall, the family he had bitterly searched for so long. Jian Chen would not stand for any wrongs or abuse that happened to them. "My lord, please, have you seen or know where my Kendall is? Why has he not returned home?" The shop owner dearly missed Kendall and continued to ask about his whereabouts. "That is," Jian Chen's face fell as he began to stutter, not knowing what to say. How could he say that Kendall exchanged his life for Jian Chen's when the Golden Fur Tiger King had chased them through the magical Beast Mountain range? Or even that Kendall's skeleton could no longer even be found? After a split moment of hesitation, Jian Chen immediately changed the topic. "Auntie, we can talk about this later. Let me save your child first." Yes, please save my Sans. He is my only son. He cannot have anything happen to him. My lord, I beg of you, please save him." The mother pleaded once more, deeply hoping that Jian Chen would help her. Jian Chen's face grew serious as he asked, "Aunt, where did the Yangji sect take Sans? I'll bring him back." "The Yangji sect took him somewhere, but I don't know where," the shop owner cried. Thinking for a moment, Jian Chen responded, "Then auntie, let's find one of the Yangji sect. In such a short amount of time, they shouldn't have left the city." Jian Chen quickly took her outside. Seeing how willing Jian Chen was to help her, the shop owner was overjoyed. When she realized that Jian Chen was just a single person, she couldn't help but feel some doubt. "My lord, the Yangji sect is one of the strongest sects in the Qiangan kingdom. They have many people, so we should get some people to help first." Jian Chen smiled. "Auntie, you needn't worry. I will definitely bring Sans back, so come with me." Jian Chen pulled at her to follow. "One moment then. I need to lock the inn." The Yangji sect was extremely well known in the Qiangan kingdom. Practically everyone within the kingdom knew of them. By now, it hadn't even been 4 hours since the Yangji sect came, so Jian Chen could easily ask the people on the streets for their whereabouts. Quickly taking the shop owner to the temporary residence of the Yangji sect, Jian Chen and the mother could only see a large and luxurious inn. "Dear customers, would you like a room for the night or a meal?" As they entered, a waiter of the inn immediately greeted them with a curious look as he saw the footprints on the shop owner's clothes. Seeing how sorry she looked, he didn't know whether to drive her out, since she didn't seem like a guest who could even afford a meal here. Ignoring the waiter, Jianchen spread out his omnipresence to cover the entire inn. In a flash he discovered the location of the people from the Yangji sect, and took the shop owner with him. "Honored customers, might I ask how to serve you?" The waiter spoke as he moved alongside the two with a nod of his head. Jianchen tossed a gold coin to the waiter. "There's nothing, go back to your own tasks." The Yangji sect were all residing within their own special courtyard. Jianchen walked along a passageway to get to this courtyard, before being finally stopped by two middle-aged men at the doors. "Sire, this is the territory of the Yangji sect. Without permission, you may not enter." A man said, "Yangji sect, I've been looking for you." Jianchen's eyes flashed brightly as the energy of the world gathered in his hands. With the speed of lightning, he slammed his hand against the two men's chests. The two men were saint masters in strength, meaning they were ants in the eyes of a heaven saint master like Jianchen. They simply had no strength, and could only be blasted 10 meters back with a trail of blood escaping their mouths. "Auntie, let's go in." Jianchen spoke as he walked in. The shop owner quaked with fear as she followed behind Jianchen. She looked at Jianchen in a new light now. She hadn't thought that this youth, who wasn't much different in age to her son, would be strong enough to send two decently strong men flying without a problem. How audacious, who dares cause trouble here? Right as Jianchen entered the courtyard, a low shout could be heard. 10 uniformed men came charging forward to greet both Jianchen and the shop owner. Jianchen's eyes swept across the group with a cold smile. However, the woman behind him was not as calm and collected as he was. She couldn't help but look down at the ground with an extremely timid expression, as if she couldn't stand looking at them. "Kid, who are you? Why have you come into our Yangji sect's territory?" A middle-aged man spoke with a chilly voice. Jianchen's hands folded against his chest, causing the tiger cub to leap onto his shoulder. With a bright look, the cub began to look around the area. "Have your boss come on out." Jianchen spoke expressionlessly and with a detached voice. The middle-aged man grew furious. "Impudence! Youngster, who do you think you are to talk to us this way? Do you not see us at all? Arrest him and await the third master's orders." "Yes," the group replied as 20 men brought their saint weapons out, one after another, to charge at Jianchen. Snorting, Jianchen looked to a nearby tree. 20 leaves from the tree broke away and shot toward the group with blinding speed. At that moment, the previously weak leaves instantly transformed into sharp pieces of steel, spearing the throats of the 20 men. The 20 men from the Yangji sect hadn't even traveled a few steps before falling to the ground dead. Chapter 426. The killing intent skyrockets. Jianchen's actions quickly killed the Yangji sect men with quick stabs through each of the 20 men's throats, leaving the rest of the men all stunned. The remaining few men thought themselves fortunate that they did not charge at Jianchen. Otherwise they would have been the ones laying on the ground instead. Everyone from the Yangji sect was utterly shocked, and tried to hide the fear in their eyes. Although Jianchen was many years younger than them, the method he had used to kill the 20 men had shocked them. "Sire, just who are you?" The first person spoke. His voice began to treat Jianchen with a more respectful voice. "Call out your leader immediately, otherwise, I will kill you all." Jianchen spoke coldly. "You," the middle-aged man growled. The Yangji sect were a high symbol of power within the Qiangan kingdom. Even the prince of the kingdom could not easily get away with mocking them. Thus, this cavalier attitude of Jianchen toward his Yangji sect was something that infuriated the man, but he didn't dare do anything due to his weakness. "What has happened? Why is there such a commotion?" At that moment, a deep-sounding voice could be heard as a long-haired, black-robed man came walking into the courtyard. The man's face was steadfast and looked to be around 50 years old. In his eyes, a bright glint could be seen. Third teacher. Third teacher." Upon seeing this man, every single person bent down in a respectful bow toward him. The third teacher walked up to the group and was immediately informed by the middle-aged man. "Third teacher, you've come just in time. Not only has he caused trouble, but he has killed 20 of our disciples. This is an unforgivable crime. Ignoring what the man had said, the newcomer looked at Jianchen for a moment as if studying him. Turning grim, the man had taken notice that despite Jianchen looking around 20 years old, he was an extremely unusual person. Sire, who are you, and why have you crossed paths with my Yangji sect? The third uncle spoke with a dark expression. Third teacher, why spare words on this man? He has killed 20 disciples. Just how could we forgive him for this? The middle-aged man standing beside the third teacher gnashed his teeth in anger, as if trying to convince him. The third teacher lifted a hand to calm the man before turning back to wait for Jianchen's response. Jianchen's hands remained crossed against his chest, and ignored the third teacher. Only the woman standing right behind Jianchen could be heard quaking in fear. But even she remained quiet. Earlier today, your Yangji sect abducted someone. Bring him out here immediately, otherwise, do not blame me for being unkind. Jianchen spoke with an icy tone. The third teacher's expression suddenly changed to grow dark as he spoke. Sire, are you aware of the consequences your words may bring you? My Yangji sect is not an entity you can easily provoke. I don't care what sect you belong to. Return the person back to me and kneel down in apology. Otherwise, you and your men will never leave this place alive. Jianchen spoke. Since they had taken the son of his uncle Kendall, there was no way he would forgive such an action. How brassy! The third teacher roared in anger. You who don't know the immensity of the earth and the heavens. Why don't you show me your potential then? With that, the man materialized a blue machete in his hand, and shot toward Jianchen with lightning-quick speed. Sneering, Jianchen revealed a cold smile as he pointed a finger at the man. Instantly, an azure and violet-colored sword chi shot from his finger, and toward the incoming third teacher. Ding! A cracking sound could be heard as the azure and violet sword chi accurately stabbed into the third teacher's machete. The power within this finger-sized attack was so strong that it caused the third teacher's forward momentum to come to a grinding halt, before instantly blowing him back through the air. Somersaulting backward, the man landed on his feet several meters away from his original position. With some difficulty, he stabilized himself, but his facial expression afterward was very troubled as he looked at Jianchen. His own strength was decent as an Earth Saint Master, but to think that he would have been pushed back by a single shot of sword chi. Then, the third teacher realized something and gasped in shock. You're a Heaven Saint Master. As soon as everyone heard this, they were aghast with shock, and their eyes popped wide open with surprise. I will count to 3. If I do not see the person you took, don't think about escaping with your life. Jianchen spoke coldly without any more patience. Quick, bring that guy out. This time, the third teacher's voice was not as steadfast as before and quickly barked out an order. Even the other men from the Yangji sect didn't have the same bravado as before. Flashing a quick look of terror at Jianchen, several men instantly scampered to go bring the man Jianchen was looking for. Quickly, a bloody figure was brought out by the Yangji sect. His hair was messy and his body was filled with wounds from a whip. Even his clothes were on the verge of tearing apart. When the woman standing behind Jianchen saw the bloody figure, she let out a shriek of horror and charged bravely straight through the men and toward the youth with a great cry. My Sans! My dear son, how could such a thing happen to you? Ah, my poor child. When the third teacher saw the state the child was in, his face had instantly fallen. He never would have thought that the proprietress of a small time and would somehow manage to have a connection to a Heaven Saint Master, and thus he had not spared the whip with their captive. But now that the youth was in such a state, he nervously waited to see if Jianchen would be angered. The Yangji sect let the youth go, and with fear, they turned to look at Jianchen before silently walking back. Jianchen's dark face looked at the state of the youth, and squatted down to take a closer look at his wounds. Instantly, a large amount of killing intent exploded from Jianchen, and flooded the entire courtyard. Jianchen's eyes frosted over as his killing intent skyrocketed. Yangji sect, I Jianchen, will destroy every single one of you. Chapter 427. Killing the Yangji sect. Upon hearing Jianchen's declaration of destroying the Yangji sect, everyone within the sect became furious. Despite everyone fearing Jian Chen's immense strength, the third teacher couldn't help but cry out, "Sire, the Yangji sect has deep roots in the Qiangan kingdom, some even with the royal family. You should think about the words coming out of your mouth before you speak them. I will have you all slain here today." Jian Chen spoke, as even more killing intent exploded out from him. All of the nearby trees began to shake and explode before transforming into wood splinters that shone with an azure and violet glow. Traveling through the air, the wood splinters suddenly found themselves shooting straight for the Yangji sect. Out of the entire Yangji sect men gathered here, only the third teacher was an Earth Saint Master. Everyone else were Great Saint Masters and below, meaning there was absolutely no way for them to defend themselves against a Heaven Saint Master. Without any resistance, each person was instantly riddled with holes. Even the Earth Saint Master found it extremely hard to defend against. The wood splinters found it extremely easy to pierce through his Saint Force defenses and instantly spear through his body in various different places. In an instant, more than a dozen Yangji sect men had died without a problem. Their blood stained the ground below them and had even spread into the air to create the bloody stench of death. "My child, oh my poor child, wake up. Don't scare your mother like this. If you die, then your mother doesn't wish to live either." The woman continued to cry, not even noticing the bloodbath that occurred around her. Jian Chen's killing intent slowly receded from his eyes as he walked toward the shop owner. "Auntie, don't worry. He is still alive, he just fainted from his wounds." Jian Chen spoke with some remorse. He had checked his wounds earlier, and while they were not life-threatening, his inner saint weapon had been utterly destroyed. In accordance to the continent, that would mean the youth would never be able to cultivate and would forever remain an ordinary man without strength. Upon hearing Jian Chen's words, the shop owner's eyes lit up as she spoke up in hope. "Is that true? My lord, will my child live?" Jian Chen nodded his head. "Auntie, let us take Sans home. Sans is the child of Kendall. Whatever revenge that is planned, I will take it all and allow the Yangji sect to come to justice." The shop owner was moved by his words and thanked him over and over again. "My lord, I thank you truly. My dear benefactor, for as long as this woman lives, I will work as hard as an ox to repay you." Jian Chen immediately stopped the woman there and spoke. "Auntie, do not say such words. Uncle Kendall has treated me with such kindness in the past. It is only right that I help you. Let us take Sans home first." Afterward, Jian Chen took the bloody son and the mother back to the inn. Before they left, the woman noticed that the courtyard was littered with corpses and caused her to be frightened out of her mind. Although she had seen people die before, there was far too many dead bodies here for her. The Yangji sect stood at the top of the Qiangan kingdom in strength, and so the woman couldn't help but worry. When Jian Chen left the fancy inn, the bloody figure of the youth attracted the attention of everyone. After they left, the waiter immediately ran off to the courtyard where the Yangji sect were. Upon seeing the dead bodies littering the courtyard, his face instantly paled before running off to notify the shop owner of the inn. Not too long after, a white-robed youth with an expensive-looking fan came running into the courtyard along with several bodyguards. This youth was the young master and the second son of the patriarch, meaning his identity was extremely well known and could stand on the same level of the prince of the kingdom. He had originally gone out with several bodyguards for a stroll and had coincidentally evaded the massacre. When the second son of the Yangji sect saw the bloody sight, his face instantly paled. After being told of what happened by the waiter, he immediately ran as fast as he could back to the Yangji sect without delay. Even the body of his third teacher was left back at the courtyard. The massacre of more than a dozen men from the Yangji sect was an enormous piece of information that could not be silenced. In a flash, the news had traveled throughout the entire city, even to the mercenary groups residing there. As they traveled, they spread the news even more, resulting in almost everyone knowing what had transpired. But Jian Chen was unaware to the news of the outside world. The only thing he cared about right now was the recovery of the son. Putting the son on the bed, he immediately took out a radiant spirit pill for the youth to eat. As soon as the pill was swallowed, the son's wounds began to heal at an accelerated rate. Although his wounds were heavy, The pill's quality was even higher, so the wounds began to heal right in front of their eyes. Not too long afterward, Sans recovered to consciousness, but he was still extremely weak. Despite the radiant spirit pill curing his wounds, his saint weapon had been shattered. This meant that without any saint force, recovering his strength would be a difficult thing to do in short amount of time. However, for the sake of his recovery, Jianchen was not stingy with his radiant spirit pills, and took out 2 more. With 3 pills used, the recovery rate of the youth was astonishingly fast, and had even driven away the weakness from having his saint weapon shattered. However, even after recovering, Sans was not happy. He was well aware of what had happened to his body. With his saint weapon gone, he had degenerated to become a cripple that would forever remain at the bottom of the Tianyuan continent. Jianchen understood his feelings and said to him, "Sans, please don't feel sad. Although you have lost your saint weapon, your future will be better than before. I will take your revenge and exact it on the Yangji sect for you. Benefactor, I cannot thank you enough for rescuing me, but the Yangji sect is far too strong. It is not worth offending them for my sake." Sans was quiet when he spoke, indicating his sadness. "My lord, I truly thank you for rescuing my Sans, but my child is correct. The Yangji sect is far too strong for you to offend," the shop owner said through her tears. She and her son were the commoners of society, and the Yangji sect left a strong impression on them. Neither one wished for Jianchen to come across any danger for them. Then, the shop owner spoke to her son. "Sans, we should leave this place and go to a faraway village to live our lives there. It would be better there than to live here in fear and poverty." Before Sans could reply, Jianchen beat him to it. "How could I let that happen? Auntie Sans, come back with me to the Jessen kingdom. I will let you live a happy life without danger. The Yangji sect will not escape my ire. Sans' revenge will be enacted through me. Otherwise, I would not be able to face Uncle Kendall." Upon hearing Jianchen's words, Sans immediately froze up, his sadness scattered away from his eyes. "Benefactor, you know my father?" Jianchen nodded his head. "Sans, I will tell you about your father later, but right now we should focus on your health." "I'm fine now, but I feel no energy in my body." Sans spoke feebly. "Sans, you should rest up for now. Tomorrow, I will take revenge for you." The inn was closed for the next day, as Jianchen stayed in it. He wanted to protect the mother and son, and to avoid having the pair ask him about Uncle Kendall's whereabouts. He invented an excuse to remain within his room without disturbance. Right now, Jianchen didn't know how to explain it to the both of them. How could he just say that Uncle Kendall had left this world? With Sans' terrible situation, Jianchen did not want to leave another wound on them both. Jianchen sighed. "If only I had known earlier, then I would have stayed silent about knowing Uncle Kendall." After some time, the city lord's mansion had many influential people gathered there to talk about the slaughter of the Yangji SCT. For their city to have several men from a high-ranking sect was no small matter, and was bad news for everyone involved with the city. "City lord, whoever dares fight against the Yangji sect is definitely not a minor character. A person of this nature is someone we cannot offend either. Since he was able to kill an Earth Saint Master with ease, his strength must be truly strong. City Lord, I received news not too long ago that a Heaven Saint Master had arrived within our city. I believe that the person who killed the Yangji sect may be the very same person as that Heaven Saint Master." "What? A Heaven Saint Master? Dear heavens, this is not someone we can offend. City Lord, this is something we should best stay out of. Instead of participating, we should let the Yangji sect deal with it themselves." The influential people continued to talk for half the day, before finally deciding to stay out of trouble. With their current position and the immensity of the ordeal, they did not wish to get involved. On the second day, Sans and the mother left the inn with new clothes. On the streets, Jianchen had not bothered to do anything as he used his wind element to wrap the mother and son. Taking them into the air, they flew toward the Yangji sect, much to the shock of everyone around. The Yangji sect was not all that far away from the second-class city. It was only 500 kilometers to the mountain ranges, where the Yangji sect was located. With an elevation of 5,000 meters, A swirl of clouds and mist covered the mountain peaks, so anyone who looked at it would feel a tinge of mystery. Chapter 428. Battle at the Peak. The Yangji sect was extremely strong within the Qingan kingdom. Their reputation could pressure even the royal family itself. They also had 2 Heaven Saint Masters, which was equal to the number the imperial palace had at any given time. Aside from the Heaven Saint Masters, they had at the very least 20 Earth Saint Masters, and several thousand disciples. Have you found out who killed your third teacher? A middle-aged man asked. This child asked the waiter at the inn and several others. The initial judgment is that the person who killed our men is a youth around the age of 20. As for his identity, I do not know. A youth replied. At this, the middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something and stared seriously at the youth in front of him. A 20-year-old youth. Fair, do you happen to know what his appearance is like? The middle-aged man's expression made everyone around him confused at what he had thought of in order for him to suddenly act like this. The youth wasn't stupid, and had immediately noticed the change of expression. Looking down, he began to concentrate on his appearance. Father, this child hasn't seen this person, but the waiter said that the man was quite handsome and had very short hair around an inch long. Hair as long as an inch. The middle-aged man hummed as his face grew even more grim. So it's him. He matches the description given to us by the elders. I didn't think that after causing so much trouble at the palace, he would come to cause trouble with our Yangji sect. It would appear that he is from the Jessin kingdom. The middle-aged man stood up. Fair, you can go. I know who he is now. It is possible that our Yangji sect will be faced with danger. For the next 2 days, you should go hide yourself and wait for things to calm down. I must go warn the elder patriarch for now. Hearing this, the youth instantly blanched. He hadn't thought that the situation would be that dire. Cupping his hands, he spoke. Yes, father. Your son will leave now. As soon as the youth left, the middle-aged man looked around himself with a serious expression. Everyone, you should be well aware of this man now. Have everyone prepare themselves. No matter if he charges at our Yangji sect or not, we must work together to make preparations. News of Jianshan causing trouble at the Qingan Kingdom's imperial palace had been completely suppressed. But because of the connections to the royal family, the Yangji sect had naturally found out. Thus, despite not seeing Jianshan, he was not a complete stranger to him, and could guess who he was from his appearance. Yes, Patriarch. Everyone replied before setting outside. Afterward, the sect master of the Yangji sect left the mountains to report the matter to the elder patriarch. As soon as the elder patriarch heard of the matter, he exited out of the belly of the mountain, with another pale-faced elder. That elder held an esteemed status as a grand elder. Judging from your description, I already know who this mysterious youngster is. He is not from the Jessin kingdom, but rather has a connection with them. The Blue Wind Kingdom and our kingdom had sent 11 Heaven Saint Masters in total to fight the Jessin kingdom. But after his appearance, they had to retreat back in defeat. 7 of them were even killed by him, before they could even notice, meaning his strength is not just for show. The Grand Elder spoke. This elder was one of the fortunate ones that had managed to escape from Jianshan from before. Elder Gao, you've healed a decent amount. How likely do you think we will be able to successfully defend ourselves against him? The elder patriarch of the Yangji sect spoke calmly, as if he did not care for this matter. That mysterious youth caused trouble at the imperial palace yesterday. Even the 5th cycle Qin Yun had not been an opponent for him. I do not believe we stand a chance at all. The Grand Elder spoke. Hearing this, the elder patriarch snorted in disdain. If he had only just caused trouble, then I needn't worry. If he truly tries to cause trouble here, he will regret it. Humph. He is merely a frog in the well, that does not know how minuscule he is to the Yangji sect. Elder Yang, what makes you say that? Could it be you have a way to deal with that expert? The Grand Elder looked at the elder patriarch with a surprised look. The elder patriarch laughed. Let us head to the entrance to the mountains. The Holy Yangji Mountains was where the Yangji sect station was. Several hundred years ago, the mountain range had decent scenery, but it was an obscure mountain range in the Qingan kingdom. After the Yangji sect occupied it, The mountain range came to be known as the Holy Yangji Mountains. As the Yangji sect grew in strength, the mountains gradually became more and more famous. Today, the Holy Yangji Mountains was proclaimed the Holy Mountains of the Qiangan Kingdom, and had many disciples visiting it in hopes of becoming a disciple. Jianchun brought the mother and son 1,000 kilometers above the air, before quickly descending to the entrance at the mountain peak. As soon as Jianchun arrived, the Yangji sect had already been prepared themselves with over 100 disciples, standing guard at the entrance with grim expressions. When the very first disciple noticed Jianchun, he cried out, "A heaven saint master has arrived, notify the patriarch." A loud whistle could soon be heard piercing the air, and seemingly echoed throughout the entire mountain range. The entire Yangji sect began to grow restless now as each and every disciple throughout the mountains headed in the direction of the whistle. Jianchun gave a cold smile. The Yangji sect had truly prepared themselves for his arrival. Both the mother and son looked on in alarm and fear behind Jianchun. Although they knew how strong Jianchun was, he was a heaven saint master, but the might of the Yangji sect was far too powerful. The two had long since given up on the idea of victory, so they were feeling concerned on how Jianchun would be able to defend himself against the Yangji sect. The white tiger cub obediently sat on Jianchun's shoulders and continued to blink widely with its large eyes. With a nimble leap, it flew from Jianchun's right shoulder to his left and grabbed onto his neck with its claws. Jianchun looked back to the mother and son. "Auntie Sans, stay here and don't worry. I won't allow danger to come to you. Benefactor, please worry about yourself first." Sans spoke to Jianchun. Jianchun laughed carelessly and strode forward. Clenching at the empty air, Jianchun began to summon all the fire element in the world around his hands, forming two giant swords made of fire. With a blazing temperature, the swords flew at the gates of the Yangji sect. "Run!" Those who were defending the gates immediately blanched and flew away from the flame swords that were headed toward the sect. Bang! A giant clang could be heard as the gates to the mountain were instantly immersed in flames and plunged the entire sky into a sea of flames. As it spread out, those dozen disciples that didn't run away in time were caught in it and howled out in pain. The entire world seemed to have erupted as the flames licked away at the entire area. Even the blades of grass burst into flames with a bright light that could be seen from far away. Soon enough, even the wooden buildings some distance away from the gates began to burn, black smoke rising into the air. Jianchun's hands swished through the air as he brought the two swords together to form a single bright sword. With one push, the giant sword buried itself deep into a concentrated area of buildings and burst into flames. Suddenly, two powerful auras filled with anger could be felt coming straight toward Jianchun. At the same time, a bright and sharp attack of sword chi came flying through the air straight for Jianchun. Chapter 429. Contest with a heaven-tier battle skill. Jianchun grabbed at empty sky and sent the flame sword at the sword chi coming at him. Upon contact, a shock wave was formed as the flame sword and sword chi cancelled each other out, with an explosive explosion that scattered even the clouds overhead. The buildings within the Yangji sect were comprised mainly of wood, so they were susceptible to fire. The explosion sent fire everywhere, and the buildings easily caught fire. In an instant, the buildings began to light up with fire, as many disciples hurriedly tried to salvage the more precious items from the burning wreckage. Many others were desperately trying to combat the flames with water and slow down the spread. In an instant, Jianchun had caused the entire sect to go crazy. The mother and son looked at the battle with stunned expressions and gaping mouths from how the Yangji sect had reacted. Despite their shock, they couldn't help but feel some happiness at the panic the Yangji sect were feeling. At the same time, they couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. Because of their inability to take revenge, Jianchun had offended the entire Yangji sect for them. This made them both worried that Jianchun would come across trouble because of them. "Mother, the Lord is extremely strong. Just who is he?" Sans spoke with awe and a little fear. The mother could only shake her head with a blank expression. "Your mother doesn't know either. However, our benefactor knows your father. And if he is willing to help us this much, their relationship must be a good one." Jian Chen's eyes flashed brightly as he began to fly up several dozen meters. At the same time, two white-robed elders were quickly closing in before finally stopping 50 meters away. The elder patriarch of the Yangji sect looked at the burning buildings behind him with a dark expression before glaring sharply at Jian Chen. "Sire, just who are you? State your name." Jian Chen returned the glare at the elder patriarch, before turning to look at the grand elder, with a spike of killing intent. "I didn't think that I would see you here. You didn't run away far enough. A few days ago, I didn't lay claim to your life, but let's see you run away from this calamity now." Seeing how Jian Chen just blatantly ignored him, the elder patriarch of the Yangji sect looked murderous. Hearing Jian Chen's words, the Yangji sect's grand elder grew dark for a moment. "Sire, I know all of the Heaven Saint Masters within this area by name or by face, but I have never seen or heard a person of your stature before. Just who are you, and why must you interfere with our war with the Jessen Kingdom?" Jian Chen let out a sneer. "I am a member of the Jessen Kingdom, but the war is not why I am here. Your Yangji sect has destroyed the saint weapon of the son of my dear friend, rendering him a cripple. I would not be able to rest easily if revenge was not served, so the blood of the Yangji sect will serve as atonement." Jian Chen spoke before quickly shooting the two flame swords back at the two elders. Scattering the attacks with their own sword qi, the two elders watched as the flames moved to burn even more buildings instead of fading away. With a furious yell, the Grand Elder began to gather the water elements in the world, and formed a giant sphere of water. Making a fist with his hand, the sphere instantly burst into a giant downpour that extinguished the fire. The water and fire canceled each other out with a crackling sound. The fire evaporated the water and transformed the water into steam that spread through the sky and covered everyone's vision. Jian Chen let out a cold smile as he spoke. "It seems that even your water could only be evaporated by the fire." Fire began to swarm around Jian Chen once more as he continued to refuel the flames with an even stronger concentration. A bright pink ball 10 meters in diameter began to appear, before growing progressively hotter and hotter. As if being roasted by the ball of flame, the temperature around it started to heat up as well. At Jian Chen's actions, the Yangji sect instantly knew what he was doing and grew panicked. Without any hesitation, the elder patriarch formed a blade made from his earth-attributed saint force and charged straight for Jian Chen in order to stop him. Jian Chen smiled before causing the ball of fire to suddenly explode with a single thought, sending a tremendous heat wave over the Yangji sect. At the same time, he formed the origin energy in his right hand and struck at the elder patriarch's saint weapon with it. As the two weapons clashed, the elder patriarch suddenly spat out blood and hastily retreated. Looking at his own saint weapon, there was a large gap in it. Seeing the hole in his saint weapon, the elder patriarch was terrified. Looking at Jian Chen, he sputtered, "Why you? Just how?" His eyes grew wide as if his heart had just been attacked. For opponents on the same level of strength, no matter how strong they were, they would never be able to destroy the other's saint weapon with such ease. By this point, the flames that came from the ball of fire covered the entire Yangji sect. Countless buildings caught fire, turning the place into an inferno. Plenty of disciples from the sect rolled on the ground in an attempt to extinguish the fire on them with howls of misery, before quickly succumbing to them. This was no ordinary fire. It was fire that was made with the elements of the world, so those without enough strength would not be able to endure it for long. Those fortunate disciples that didn't get burned scattered throughout the area in an attempt to escape with their lives. Right now there was a clear danger to their lives where even stronger disciples had lost their lives. A danger like this meant that every disciple should try their best to run away from the ocean of fire. A Heaven Saint Master was terrifying in their capability to fight. Even the energy waves from their attacks could cause damage that even an Earth Saint Master would be shocked by. Hua! Before the fire could spread any farther through the sect, a large rain cloud began to rain on the fire. Sizzling sounds could be heard as the rain began to evaporate in an attempt to put out the flames. The Grand Elder floated above the air and continued to bring even more water down to combat the flames. The mother and son had long since retreated several meters. They were afraid of getting too close to the intense, scorching hot flames. Right now, they could only watch in utter shock at the sight in front of them. Was this really the invulnerable Yangji sect right in front of them? Seeing the rain get heavier and heavier, Jian Chen's eyes glinted darkly before moving away from the elder patriarch to fight the Grand Elder instead. Seeing Jian Chen charge toward the Grand Elder, the elder patriarch hurriedly cried out a warning. Be careful, his sword has a strange energy to it. Don't let it touch your saint weapon. Hearing the elder patriarch's warning, the Grand Elder's face shifted uncomfortably as he gathered the water elements in the world once more. A blue sword appeared in his hands. Trying to dodge the strike of origin energy, the elder stabbed at Jian Chen's chest with the water sword. Jian Chen's origin energy-formed sword continued to clash with the water sword the elder had made. Within 3 exchanges, Jian Chen managed to strike the elder's saint weapon, causing him to cough out blood from the damage to his saint weapon. Just as Jian Chen was about to take the opportunity to end the elder's life, an overwhelming amount of power suddenly descended from the sky and locked onto Jian Chen's body. Jian Chen could feel his entire body seemingly freeze in place, making mobility extremely difficult, like he was stuck in a quagmire. An intense amount of energy began to pour out from the elder patriarch from his perch in the sky. At this moment, the elder patriarch was like a war god that was descending from the heavens with his hair and clothes flying everywhere. His long sword was pointing straight up with an unbelievable amount of energy gathering at the tip, distorting the space around it. The sky began to darken as the winds began to pick up with a screeching wail. In an instant, the flames that were licking away at the buildings were blown out, and the mist on top of the mountains disappeared without a trace. This is a heaven-tier battle skill. Jian Chen looked at the elder patriarch astonished. He hadn't thought that there would be a heaven-tier battle skill here. Even after seeing so many heaven saint masters, not a single one of them had a heaven-tier battle skill aside from Xiao Tian and Ming Dong. Jian Chen's face grew grim. Even a heaven-tier battle skill was something he had to be careful of. Although he could easily kill a heaven saint master that was reliant on his origin energy, if he couldn't use it, killing a heaven saint master would require a large sum of energy. A heaven-tier battle skill. Elder Yang, you really did have one. The Grand Elder looked at the elder patriarch in utter shock. Chapter 430. Guardian Clan. Underneath. Every disciple looked up from far away. Even from such a distance, the look of respect and admiration toward their elder patriarch was clear to see. The fact that their elder patriarch had a heaven-tier battle skill was something that the disciples could feel joyous about. If he were to use it, the intruder would surely die. Even the higher-ranking members of the sect were astounded by this fact. The current acting patriarch was no exception either. Ever since the elder patriarch had founded the sect a few hundred years ago, not a single person had known that he was in possession of one. If it were not for the fact that an intruder of incredible power had came today, the entire world would remain clueless about his heaven-tier battle skill. Die! A heaven saint master would not always need a long time to prepare a heaven-tier battle skill before it was fully prepared. With a loud explosion, the entire world shook, and the mountains echoed with the sound. All everyone could see was the giant 100-meter-long sword fly out from his saint weapon. From far away, it was like a giant sword had come down from the heavens themselves in a glorious manner. Afterward, the elder patriarch waved his saint weapon, causing the giant sword to come dropping down toward Jian Chen with a spectacular light. The light was compressed to the point of resembling a mini-sun with the sharp light rays it was emitting. Even the space where the sword was traveling was starting to crack from the pressure in an extremely noticeable way. Jian Chen had been locked onto by the heaven-tier battle skill, making him unable to move out of the way. With no other choice, he was forced to block it head-on. Growing serious, Jian Chen began to concentrate the origin energy. At the same time, his eyes began to glow with both the azure and violet light in an unholy manner that made him seem more ghost than human. On the ground, several trees were suddenly uprooted as they splintered into several pieces of timber. In the next moment, each one of the pieces shot toward the giant sword, and the light it was giving off while Jian Chen stayed behind and gathered even more origin energy. As for the mother and son, the surrounding earth rose up to cover them, like a fortified fort with the two protected inside. Not only did the earth rise up quickly, but it also compressed the material together to become as dense as iron, and from far away, it looked as if it was a large boulder. Bang! Following a giant explosion from Jianshan coming into contact with the Heaven Tier battle skill, a large wave of energy billowed out like a giant tidal wave. Any building in its path was destroyed, and the trees were uprooted, grass was broken into pieces, and even the earth was stripped away of its first layer. Only the mother and son were protected within the stone fort, but even that had started to crack. After some time, the energy finally started to die down, but the Yangji sect did not look the same as it had before. The entire place was nearly barren now. The majority of the nearby buildings had been utterly demolished. Many of the disciples of the sect had even been tossed to and fro, with serious damages to show for their pains. Some of the weaker men had even fallen off the sides of the mountains, making it difficult to see whether or not they had survived. The elder patriarch floated up above, with a pale face from the exertion. The outcome of his sect was not of concern to him, only the enemy in front of him. When he looked down, an unbelievable sight greeted his eyes. Jianshan could be seen floating up in midair with the origin energy blazing brightly in his right hand. The only difference to him from before the Heaven Tier battle skill had struck was that he was slightly pale, and his clothes were in tatters. There was also traces of blood coming from his nose and lips that trailed down his throat and to his chest. With his clothes in such a tattered state, the pale white flesh could be seen underneath. A Heaven Tier battle skill was unbelievably strong, and even Jianshan had to make use of his entire strength in order to block it. If it had been an Earth Tier battle skill, even an advanced one would pose no threat to Jianshan. But a Heaven Tier battle skill was completely different compared to an Earth Tier battle skill. With just an elemental sword to help him block, Jianshan wouldn't be able to shrug it off so easily. Jianshan had to use the origin energy from the sword spirits in order to help. But even then, he had sustained some damage. You blocked my Heaven Tier battle skill," the Yangji sect elder patriarch cried out in shock. He couldn't understand how that was possible. Despite it being only a primary Heaven Tier battle skill, it was still a Heaven Tier battle skill. He had long since mastered the basics to the skill, and could cause devastating damage to even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master. So there should have been no way for Jianshan to escape with just the damage he showed now. Jianshan's eyes glowed brightly. "I had no idea you would have a Heaven Tier battle skill. But even with that, it changes nothing." Right after he spoke, Jianshan's eyes grew even brighter as he charged toward the elder patriarch. The elder patriarch's strongest Heaven Tier battle skill had been unable to kill Jianshan, causing him to lose his will to fight. Immediately flying back, he attempted to run away from him. "Elder Yang, I'm here to help." I doubt that a Heaven Tier battle skill didn't cause as much damage as he shows. The Grand Elder cried out as he charged toward Jianshan with his blue-colored saint weapon. The Elder Patriarch's eyes flashed with realization as he spoke. "That's right. Even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master would be unable to defend my Heaven Tier battle skill. Your internal damages must be worse than what you're trying to show us. Don't even try to trick us with your nonchalant act." The Elder Patriarch immediately stopped his retreat and regained the will to fight. Taking out his saint weapon, he immediately flew back toward Jianshan to fight him. As if taunting them, Jianshan began to laugh out loud. At the same time, the Grand Elder had already drawn close to Jianshan and tried to stab him between Jianshan's eyes with his water-attributed saint force. Jianshan's right hand blurred into motion as the origin energy made sword stabbed at the saint weapon aimed at him. Knowing just how strong the origin energy was, the Grand Elder had no desire to cross blades with it, and immediately changed the trajectory of his blade toward the heart instead. Despite Jianshan losing his saint force, his reaction speed was still fast, and his body was still strong. Capable of using up to 80% of his original speed, he could easily twist his wrist, so that the origin energy sword chased after the enemy's saint weapon with a trail of azure and violet. In a moment of light, the two powers clashed together, causing the Elder Saint weapon to break off in another piece. The Grand Elder let out a mouthful of blood as the color drained away from his face. Despite making a great attempt to dodge Jian Chen's weapon, he had still been unable to dodge it. Illusion of the Thousand Swords. The Elder Patriarch had managed to get close as well, and used his Earth Tier battle skill without hesitation. Images of his sword began to cover the sky in numerous amounts. Each sword looked more real than not, with real killing intent pouring from them. Jian Chen's eyes flashed with the azure and violet light once more. In an instant, sword chi began to shoot out from Jian Chen's body toward the Earth Tier battle skill. They shattered each illusion and completely dissolved the Elder Patriarch's battle skill. The origin energy in Jian Chen's hands then transformed into a bright gleam of light that shot toward the Grand Elder. PCHT, stabbing through the area between the Grand Elder's eyebrows, the origin energy immediately pierced his head, completely obliterating his soul. Elder Gao! The Elder Patriarch cried out in grief and anger. Jian Chen's left hand shot forward to grab the Elder's space ring. Immediately after, the origin energy shot forth from his right hand to stab at the grieving Elder Patriarch. The Elder Patriarch's face fell as he immediately backed away in fear. You will regret your actions on this day. No matter who you are, you have earned my wrath upon your next 9 generations. Jian Chen paid no heed to his words and chased after him. Starting from today, we'll see if the Yangji sect will even continue to exist. Ignorant man. Do you take my Yangji sect as a small sect? My sect has a strength far bigger than what you could even imagine. The Elder Patriarch roared. Hearing this, Jian Chen stopped for a moment as he thought about his words. Could he have some sort of strong support behind him? My Yangji sect cannot even be measured by any means. In front of my sect, you are nothing more than a frog in the well. This division is merely one of the many sects established to look out over the entire continent. Since you've destroyed my Yangji sect branch here, there'll come a day where the Yangji sect will dispatch an even stronger expert to eliminate you. The elder spat ominously. Jian Chen sneered and said, I don't care who you are. You will not escape today. Without any further ado, the azure and violet origin energy immediately grew bright before speeding toward the Elder Patriarch without mercy. The Elder Patriarch grew dark as he spoke. To offend my guardian clan, you will regret this. With that, the Elder Patriarch took out a piece of jade from his space ring and instantly crushed it. A strange energy immediately rushed out of it before wrapping the Elder up in a strange spatial distortion. He quickly disappeared without a trace. Jian Chen was shocked. Blinking his eyes, he spread out his omnipresence to cover an entire 15-kilometer circumference in an attempt to find just where the Elder Patriarch had gone. But it was to no use. The Elder Patriarch had disappeared without a trace and could not be located. What was that mysterious item, if it could let someone escape more than 15 kilometers away? Jian Chen questioned with confusion. Chapter 431. Returning to the East. What was that mysterious item, if it could let someone escape more than 15 kilometers away? Jian Chen questioned with confusion. He was truly curious on what method the Elder Patriarch had used to escape from the area. Just what was that jade piece he had crushed? Jian Chen began to think about the Elder Patriarch's words. Guardian clan? It seems that the Yangji sect is truly as he said. There's something that's not as it seems. But no matter what faction that has me as their enemy, it is nothing significant. The saint rulers of the world are seclusive by habit, and would not come out of hiding to come to such a small area for a personal vendetta. The chances of them coming here are far too low to consider. After considering what happened, Jian Chen began to calm down. Looking at the desolate area beneath him, Jian Chen immediately thought about the shattered saint weapon of sands, and immediately flared with killing intent. Yangji sect, as of today, you are no more. The debt that your sect owed has been paid back 1,000 times over. Jian Chen boomed, before closing his eyes as dozens of trees exploded. They filled the air with the azure and violet splinters before raining down everywhere, all around the disciples of the Yangji sect. There were so many splinters that the entire sky was almost covered. They shot down with the intensity of a barrage of arrows. There was no way for the remaining disciples to defend themselves against such a strong attack. In an instant, They all died from the barrage before they had time to even think about just what debt they were involved in. Some of the men barely had time to even cry out in pain before their deaths. The entire area was a slaughter ground, and with Jian Chen's omnipresence ability to detect anything within 15 kilometers, no one was outside of his perception. Even an ant could be detected by him, so the disciples had no chance of escaping with their lives intact. The wooden splinters locked onto each disciple and provided them no chance of survival. Even the current patriarch and several other Earth Saint Masters were able to barely survive. In an instant, they tried to surround their bodies with Saint Force, but the splinters shattered it and perforated their bodies with holes, much to their shock. Within several moments, the entire Yangji sect's mountain was littered with the corpses of 1,000 disciples. Each corpse possessed a multitude of holes that bled blood, which dripped onto the ground below, causing a giant bloody river to form. The scent of blood quickly wafted into the air. The glow in Jian Chen's eyes began to slowly recede back to his normal eye color. As he regarded the sight in front of him, Jian Chen waved his hand and watched as the space rings of several of the higher-ranking members floated up to him. With a quick count, Jian Chen grabbed all 19 space rings with his hands. Afterward, Jian Chen scoured the entire area for any cultivation manuals and monster cores. To Jian Chen, cultivation methods were a source of money, and even the monster cores could be considered to be useful. Although it was not like the Pingyang Kingdom in terms of wealth, it was not that far off either. Each monster core from every level totaled up to 40,000. Included in this sum were 2 Class 6 monster cores, 300 Class 5 monster cores, and the rest were Class 4 and under. Shortly after collecting every single monster core, Jian Chen let out a sigh. A few years ago, he had desperately fought magical beasts for their monster cores. Now, after exterminating an entire sect, he had a bounty far more than he could count. This would surely help Jian Chen increase his strength. Jian Chen began to calm down and flew toward the cracked stone fortress. Before the Elder Patriarch could use his Heaven-tier battle skill, Jian Chen had manipulated the earth elements into protecting the mother and son duo, so that they would be unaffected by the battle. At such a distance, the Heaven-tier battle skill would have been enough to utterly destroy their bodies. This was something that he could not allow. At a thought, the stone fortress cracked open without a sound, revealing the hidden mother and son. Both were extremely pale and were struggling to remain standing. "Auntie Sans, I have avenged you." Jian Chen spoke to them both with a guilty expression. Because of him, Sans had been brought into this mess. The mother and Sans looked at the sight in front of them with wide-open eyes. The entire area was flatter and more desolate than they had seen before. There was a large fissure in the middle of the earth without any buildings in sight. Scars of battle could be seen inflicted everywhere, and just a decent distance away, a giant pile of corpses could be seen bleeding profusely. At such a sight, both commoners couldn't speak a single word. This was a shocking sight that neither of the two could ever predict. Jian Chen was somehow strong enough to cause the entire Yangji sect to fall into ruins. For such a calamitous event to happen here, was this even the work of a man? Still in utter shock at Jian Chen's domineering strength, it was only now that they had both realized that his strength was far beyond anything they could possibly imagine. "Auntie Sans, let us return to the Jessen Kingdom. I will let you live in peace without any worry being able to come your way. I will not allow anyone within the Jessen Kingdom to bully you either." Jian Chen spoke kindly. Snapping out of her shock, the mother shook her head with a grateful look. "My lord, I appreciate your kindness. You've helped us far beyond than what we deserve, but we cannot keep imposing trouble on you. We've already inconvenienced you enough. I've already decided to leave with Sans to a faraway village to live our lives. How could I let that happen? Auntie, please come with me. I, Jian Chen, vow to you, I will definitely have you live a peaceful and fortuitous life." Jian Chen spoke in a hurry. He couldn't let the family of Kendall live in such poverty again. It was only after this second attempt that the mother and son accepted to return with him to the Jessen Kingdom, much to Jian Chen's relief. Taking them through the air, the three of them left the holy Yangji mountain. After they had left, The hidden disciples that had somehow managed to escape the slaughter wandered aimlessly around the ruins. The sect did not completely fall. Several disciples had been fortunate enough to be outside the 15-kilometer range before the massacre could even happen. Despite several disciples still being alive, all of the higher-ranking members had been completely annihilated, and the elder patriarch had escaped through some unknown means. The Yangji sect was truly dead in all but name. The Yangji sect was also the #1 sect within the Qingan kingdom. Many people constantly stood by the gates to the holy Yangji mountain in hopes of becoming a disciple. Because of this constant stream of hopefuls, they had all heard of the ear-popping explosions that had taken place at the peak of the mountain. Already, many people were starting to point up at the no longer cloudy peak. Just what fortune did the Yangji sect come across for them to set off firecrackers one after another? That's not right. I could clearly see the holy Yangji mountain go up in flames just a while ago. Take a look. Even the clouds nearby have turned black. Did something happen to the Yangji sect? I feel as if some sort of challenger has caused trouble for them. Have you gone senile? The Yangji sect is far too strong. Even the Qingan kingdom cannot compete with them. The Yangji sect is indeed the strongest sect in the kingdom. They even have the ears of the king. Within our Qingan kingdom, just who would dare challenge them? Many of the people who were trying to become disciples of the Yangji sect had started to guess and conjecture at what had truly happened. Take a look. There's someone flying from the mountain. That's a heaven saint master. Suddenly, someone with sharp eyes pointed out a figure in shock. For a heaven saint master to fly out of the holy Yangji sect, does that mean something has happened at the peak? An intelligent person made the connection between the two events. Since there's no one standing guard here, we should head up to take a look. Afterward, the crowd of people at the foot of the mountain quickly scaled the mountains. Upon reaching the gates, everyone instantly made a full stop with their eyes wide open at the shocking sight in front of them. The Yangji sect has been destroyed. After seemingly half the day, someone cried out in utter shock, startling everyone. Such news like this could not be stifled. Like wildfire, news that the Yangji sect had been destroyed spread through the Qingan kingdom. That was no concern to Jian Chun, as they continued to fly through the air for a couple of hours back to the eastern stronghold of the Jessen kingdom. Chapter 432. The Traveler Returning Home. 1. 2 days after Jian Chen's departure, the Jessen kingdom's eastern stronghold had stabilized. The Blue Wind Kingdom hadn't tried to attack a second time, so the rubble beneath the walls had been cleared away. Many of the blacksmiths and artisans had even repaired and refortified the walls. Carrying the mother and son into the city, he instantly descended near the temporary inn for the army. Still light-headed from the shock, the mother and son fell to the ground as if their legs were made of rubber. The mother was not a cultivator and Sans had his cultivation crippled by the others. Thus their fortitude was lacking. After flying through the air for an extended period of time, the two had felt their legs go numb. Jian Chen's sudden descent caused all of the nearby soldiers to become alarmed. Immediately sounding the alarm, everyone swarmed to the area. But no one was brave enough to get close to see if he was a friend or foe. The sudden change in the immediate surroundings caused the mother and son to be nervous, and they hid behind Jian Chen. The both of them were afraid that another massacre, like what happened at the Yangji sect, would happen once more. One of the men suddenly noticed Jian Chen's face and lit up straight away. Calling out to the other soldiers, he said, "What are you guys doing? This is the honored imperial protector. Hurry up and pay your respects to him." Jian Chen's identity was known to this high-ranking soldier, but the other foot soldiers were not able to recognize him straight away. Although Jian Chen's skill was known to everyone, very few knew what he looked like. Hearing the commander speak, everyone let out a breath in relief, and then cried out loud to Jian Chen, "We pay our respects to the imperial protector." All the soldiers were curious on just when the Jessen kingdom had such an imperial protector. Not only had they never heard of such an imperial protector, they had never seen him before either. The commander walked up to Jian Chen and spoke with a respectful bow. "Honored imperial protector, this one is Lin Yan. How may I help the honored imperial protector?" Where is General Lu? Jianchen asked. As soon as he spoke, Jianchen looked toward the inn to see General Lu coincidentally come walking out. Upon seeing Jianchen, the general gave a respectful bow. Honored Imperial Protector, you finally returned. What has happened while I was gone? Jianchen asked. General Lu shook his head. Nothing too major. However, the information I've heard keeps on coming. Honored Imperial Protector, let us talk about this inside. That will do. Jianchen nodded in agreement. Turning behind to Sans and his mother, he spoke kindly. Auntie Sans, you two should rest up for now. You haven't eaten all day. I'm sure you two are hungry. When General Lu's eyes landed upon the two commoners, he saw them as nothing more than commoners of the lowest degree. They couldn't even look at him without shuddering in fear, causing General Lu to be confused on what connection they had to an imperial protector of the Qinhuang kingdom. The mother hadn't objected to Jianchen's words and spoke. If my benefactor commands so. Jianchen let out a bitter smile. What benefactor? Auntie, please call me Jianchen. How could I do such a thing? The mother was bewildered at such a request. Her entire life, she had been a commoner at the lowest rungs of society, but even she knew the proper etiquette of society. If even the high-ranking general in front of her had to call him as an honored imperial protector, the idea of her calling him by the name Jianchen absolutely terrified her. Hearing Jianchen's words, the general and the previous commander looked at each other in astonishment before looking back at the mother and son with a new expression. Even they hadn't known the name of the Qinhuang kingdom's imperial protector. Seeing how the high and mighty imperial protector allowed for the mother and son to call him by name, they looked at the two in a different light. Even General Lu couldn't help but feel excited at this. Although he couldn't personally make a connection with the imperial protector head-on, he could do so through the mother and son. Being an imperial protector was an especially prestigious status. If any family or clan could be involved with the imperial protector of the Qinhuang kingdom, it would be of a great boon to them. Even an inferior clan could become an existence that no other clan would dare provoke overnight. Afterward, General Lu called for an officer to come. This officer was in fact another man of his family with the same background. Ordering him to treat the two like guests without any neglect, he then whispered several words to him discreetly. Afterward, the officer's face lit up into a smile before respectfully inviting the mother and son. The two were utterly confused at the officer's cordial reception and walked away with him helplessly. After all, they were dealing with an army officer. Next up, Jianchen walked with the general into a soundproof room and began to talk about the information given to them by Xiao Tian, Kafir, and another Heaven Saint Master, who had both flew to come here. Everyone began to report to him the information regarding the past 2 days. Honored Imperial Protector, yesterday morning, we've received intelligence from our northern and western strongholds. The Qiangan and Hidden Dragon Kingdom have withdrawn their armies and have sent envoys in hopes that we are open to negotiations. The general said. Hearing this, Jianchen had a faint smile on his face. This piece of information was a good thing for the Jessan kingdom. With 2 kingdoms retreating, the pressure would be significantly less. Then what of the southern stronghold? Jianchen asked. Honored Imperial Protector, yesterday we've heard that the imperial advisors from the Qinhuang kingdom have already reached the southern stronghold. Both sides were then brought into a giant battle where 2 of the Heaven Saint Masters from the Andreas kingdom died. The rest were immediately injured and retreated, forcing the army to temporarily retreat. General Lu spoke with some excitement. The Jessan kingdom was still alive for now. Jianchen nodded in satisfaction. An outcome like this was within his expectations. With 5 imperial advisors gathered at the south, Chang Wuji and 2 other Heaven Saint Masters from the Jessan kingdom, there was a total of 8 Heaven Saint Masters defending the southern stronghold. Unless there was some sort of unexpected development, or the Andreas kingdom dispatched all of their Heaven Saint Masters, the southern stronghold should be fine. Because of the military might of the Qinhuang kingdom, they could hold off anyone the same level as them with their heaven-tier battle skill. General, there is an important report. Suddenly, a loud voice called out from outside. Hearing this, The general looked grim as he barked, "Enter." An armored commander came walking in as he bowed toward Jian Chun and the other 3 men. With a letter in his hand he spoke. "General, the Blue Wind Kingdom have started to pull back their armies and sent a letter of surrender." General Lu's face lit up in joy as he began to read through the letter. Smiling widely, he laughed. "Wonderful! How absolutely wonderful! This letter was personally written by the king of the Blue Wind Kingdom. Not only have they pulled their armies from our borders, but they are willing to compensate for the damages they've incurred. Their envoys are on the way in hopes that negotiations can be made with our kingdom." Upon hearing this, the headmaster of the Kargath Academy and the other Heaven Saint Master let out a look of pure relief that could not be contained. By now, the eastern, western, and northern strongholds had been completely stabilized. Only the southern stronghold had the army of the Andreas Kingdom within their borders. However, no one was worried anymore. The southern stronghold had 8 Heaven Saint Masters, meaning the experts were literally as numerous as the clouds. The Andreas Kingdom simply had no chance of winning against the 8, so their surrender was only a matter of time now. As the 4 began to calm down, General Lu sat down. "Honored Imperial Protector, your trip to the Qiangan Kingdom went smoothly, I take it." Jianshan nodded. "You needn't worry about my trip to the Qiangan Kingdom. I've already solved the problem. Their kingdom has guaranteed that they will no longer act against the Jessan Kingdom." "That's good, very good. This is all thanks to the honored Imperial Protector's tireless work. Our country truly thanks you, and will remember your deeds for all eternity." General Lu spoke with gratitude. With that, Kafir and the other Heaven Saint Master spoke of their thanks as well before leaving. Jian Chun took the white tiger cub with him, and arrived at the inn where the mother and son were staying. Only the officer, General Lu had ordered to pamper the 2, was around. On the table, there was a wide assortment of exotic foods with sweet-smelling fragrances that would make anyone hungry. Chapter 433. Traveler Returning Home, 2. Upon seeing Jian Chun, the officer cordially greeted Jian Chun. After the officer left, Jian Chun spoke to the mother and son. "Auntie Sans, is this place agreeable with you?" "All is well." That officer was a little too enthusiastic. "We've felt a little too pampered," the mother joked. After she replied, Jian Chun exchanged several words with the mother and son, before finally knowing their full names. The mother was called Shin Fong, and was born in a small mountain village. Both of her parents had died long ago, and Kendall was someone who had grown up with her. Even from the start, the 2 of them had felt an affinity for each other, and had been married there in the village. San's real name was Ken Xiaosan. The name was a little crude sounding, but the village elder had been unable to find a better sounding name. At Kendall's suggestion, Ken Xiaosan became San's name. Kendall had been the strongest in the village. By the age of 21, he had been able to form his saint weapon. As a result, he had often gone into the mountains to hunt for boar, thus earning the respect of the entire village. However, the village life did not suit him despite the comfort it provided. For the sake of improving his strength and making a better life for his son, he left the village by himself shortly after Sans was born to travel the continent. For the next 20 years, Kendall would come back home, every so often with plenty of money. The family situation back at home had slowly improved, and he even had several Class 1 monster cores for Sans to cultivate with. As their family life grew better, they eventually came to a second-class city in the Qiangan Kingdom, and opened up a small inn for 10 years. "My lord, our Kendall would always come back home at least 2 or 3 times every year. But in the recent years, he hasn't sent a letter back home, or came back even once. My lord, please tell me, where has my Kendall gone to?" The mother Shinfang asked once more with a hopeful look. Jian Chun gave a mental sigh, as he wiped away any emotion on his face. "Auntie, a few years ago, Uncle Kendall came across a very profitable mission, and had to go to a faraway kingdom. It's already been 2 years, so I'm sure he'll be home soon." Jian Chun didn't wish to worry the mother, and quickly came up with an excuse. Although he knew that sooner or later the truth would come out, if he could delay it for now, then the 2 would come to terms that something had happened to him by themselves. they would at least be prepared, and when the time came for Jian Qin to tell them, they would not be as hurt. Shen Fang had no reason to doubt Jian Qin's words, and had a small smile on her face as she muttered, "No wonder he didn't come home after all this time. He's already gone far away." After a while, Jian Qin left the place. He had already planned to take the two back to Lore City where the Changyang Manor was. With his identity, he had no doubt that no one would dare do anything to them. For the sake of the two, Jian Qin waited another day to let them rest. Otherwise, he would have long since rushed to the Changyang Manor. On the second morning, news from the southern stronghold reported that the Andreas Kingdom had finally fully withdrawn their entire army from the Jessin Kingdom. At the same time, they sent a letter to the king of the Jessin Kingdom with a promise to compensate them for the war. Aside from this, the Andreas Kingdom had also sent the Prime Minister and Prince to the Jessin Kingdom as a sign of good faith. Simultaneously, General Liu received an edict from the king in hopes that all the generals of the strongholds could oversee the retreat of the enemy armies and maintain the strongholds once more. By now, the war that had gone on for many months had finally come to an end, but this final conclusion was something that no one had expected. Many of the surrounding kingdoms that had remained impartial to the war sent men to find out what had happened. Not too long afterward, shocking information made its way around. However, only the major powers or leaders of each kingdom understood what the information meant, shocking them all. The Jessin Kingdom had managed to build a relationship with one of the 8 great powers, the Qinhuang Kingdom. Although the distance between the two kingdoms was extremely far, the might of one of the 8 great powers could not be belittled. Aside from this, the Jessin Kingdom also had a strange youth that was unbelievably strong. He had first appeared at the Pingyang Kingdom's imperial palace and taken the king himself captive. After that, he had gone to the Qiangang Kingdom and killed 2 experts over there before finally destroying the kingdom's Yangji sect. He had also killed over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters from 3 different kingdoms. Such an achievement was astounding. Did the Changyang clan's ancestor return? No one else but him could have such a strength. Has the ancestor of the Changyang clan made the breakthrough? Many experts who heard the news immediately thought of the same person. After hearing that the Jessin Kingdom and the Qinhuang Kingdom were related, the news began to spread farther and farther away. Even the kingdoms countless of kilometers away heard the news and dispatched several envoys to come congratulate the Jessin Kingdom. About 100,000 kilometers away, the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom heard the news. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was one of the strongest kingdoms around, and easily had double the population of the Jessin Kingdom. Within the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, there were 16 Heaven Saint Masters. Within the imperial palace of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the monarch sat in a giant throne room, with an elder and youth kneeling down before him. Sitting upon the dragon throne, the king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom gave a gentle sigh. Who would have thought that the Jessin Kingdom would have become good enough friends with the Qinhuang Kingdom that they were given several imperial advisors for assistance? How inconceivable! The king looked down to the 2 people kneeling in front of him. My son, Prime Minister Che, I've called you here today to give you an important mission. I want you to set out to the Jessin Kingdom tomorrow with gifts for them. Ascertain the relationship between the Jessin Kingdom and then the Qinhuang Kingdom. Prime Minister Che, you should know what to do afterward. Your servant understands. The elder spoke. Good, the king muttered before speaking once more. The lands that the Jessin Kingdom occupy are extremely fertile. Provided they are given time, they will sooner or later develop into a kingdom that is no weaker than our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. No matter what relationship they hold with the Qinhuang Kingdom, it is worth our time to make friends with them to benefit us. I've heard that the king of the Jessin Kingdom dotes upon the Princess Galan, who is rumored to be the most beautiful woman in the Jessin Kingdom. She even has a talent for cultivation as well. My son, your priority is have her hand in marriage, so that our 2 kingdoms will be tied together by marriage. Your son will follow father's order. With the Great War coming to a close, all of the Heaven Saint Masters protecting the strongholds were withdrawn as well. By the second day, Jian Chun and the others planned to leave, but before they could do so, General Lu suddenly found them and said, "Honored Imperial Protector, we hope that your group will be able to give us the honor of receiving you at the Imperial Palace." Without hesitation, Jianshan replied, "I still have something important to do, Xiao Tian. You go in my stead." "Yes, Imperial Protector." Xiao Tian bowed. There was a regretful look on the general's face, but he understood the meaning. It was beneath an imperial protector of the Qinhuang Kingdom to attend such a meeting, but having a regular imperial advisor was still more than enough face for the Jessan Kingdom. "Imperial Protector, where should we go to find you afterward?" Xiao Tian spoke. "Go to Lore City. I will be heading there in a short moment." Jianshan spoke. Lore City. General Lu immediately made note to remember the name. After the exchange, Jianshan took both Shenfang and Sands away from the city and speed off into the distance toward Lore City. It was as if he had entered a whole new world, where many years had passed. Jianshan had left the Changyang Manor many years ago, as a result of the Huayan sect. Forced to hide his face, Jianshan had to leave the Jessan Kingdom. When he was a young child, he never would have thought that he would have made the transformation to become a triumphant hero. Jianshan flew through the air with the wind blowing past his face and whistling in his ears with a sharp sound. The mother and son were protected by the wind element around them, meaning they could freely fly without a problem. Jianshan had a strange look on his face as he looked forward and thought to himself, "Changyang clan, will you still remember the name, Changyang Xiangtian? Huayan sect, how clearly do you remember the youth that you forced away?" Chapter 434. Traveler Returning Home 3. Lore City was a first-class city of the Jessan Kingdom, but there were several other first-class cities, so this city didn't have much weight to it. Within Lore City, there was a total of 4 great powers: the Changyang clan, the Tianling clan, the Cheng family, and the Yanshi clan. These 4 powers represented Lore City's strongest, and were all separated within the 4 cardinal directions of the city. Out of the 4 of them, the Changyang clan had the grandest history, going back to when the Jessan Kingdom had been established, with the Changyang clan making their home here. At that time, within a fancy and sweet-smelling room within the Changyang Manor in Lore City, several people could be seen talking to each other. Within the room, a white-robed woman around the age of 30 could be seen pacing the room restlessly. Despite the restless air around her, she still had an uncommon air that added to her personality and made her look very beautiful still. "Fourth sister, are you here?" Suddenly, a knock on the door could be heard as a soft-sounding voice made an appearance on the other side. At the knock, the woman pacing inside the room opened the door, only to see another beautiful woman around the age of 30 as well. "Second sister." Upon seeing the woman on the other side of the door, the woman wearing the white dress greeted the newcomer. After being welcomed into the room by the white dress-wearing woman, the second woman spoke. "Fourth sister, I've noticed that you've been pacing around frequently these days. Has something happened?" The fourth sister let out a sigh as she gathered her thoughts. "Second sister, I've felt restless these past few days. It's been quite difficult to calm down, but I don't know what's causing this feeling." The second sister's eyes lit up in realization as she let out a gentle sigh. "Fourth sister, are you thinking of Xiangtian again?" At the name, the fourth sister immediately went quiet and tilted her head down in sorrow as tears began to appear in her eyes. Seeing the state the fourth sister was in, the second sister could only mentally sigh to herself. "Fourth sister, please don't be too hard on yourself. Xiangtian was a genius that surpassed all others. The heavens will surely protect him. It won't be long until he returns." As she spoke, her voice began to fade away, as if she herself was losing confidence in her own words. At the age of 15, Changyang Xiangtian had been forced to leave the Changyang Manor in order to escape the wrath of the Huayan sect. It had already been several years since that event, and the clan had sent people to look for him, but they returned without any news of him. It was almost as if Changyang Xiangtian had disappeared into thin air, and no matter how much they tried, nothing could be done. Thus, everyone within the manor had just assumed that Changyang Xiangtian had come across some sort of misfortune. There was far too many dangers within the Tianyuan continent, with murder being commonplace. Even if one was in a well-protected city, many ill-mannered mercenaries would oftentimes still kill people. Without even a word, a fight could break out at any moment for any reason. A child that was only 15 years old would find it hard to survive by himself in such a harsh environment. The second sister's words made Bai Yintian grieve even more. Her eyes began to well up with tears that slowly trailed down her face. Bai Yintian's body began to shake uncontrollably as she sobbed. I have no idea where my Xianger is, nor if he will even return. After so long without any news, Bai Yintian had been extremely worried about her only child. The second sister led Bai Yintian to her bed and sighed. Fourth sister, don't be too hard on yourself. You and I both wish for the same thing. Mingyue's temper was too much. After her dissatisfaction over her engagement a year ago, she ran away in the middle of the night. Up to even now, I don't know where that silly daughter of mine has gone. As a single female drifter, I can't help but feel just as worried. Then there's eldest sister Ling Long. She must be more broken-hearted than the both of us. Ahu had all 4 of his limbs cut off, making life extremely difficult for him. He can only be a cripple for the rest of his life. That must be unbearable for him. I can only hope that when Ahu wakes up, he will not decide to commit suicide. Outside of Lore City, an azure and violet light could be seen quickly descending toward the ground before disappearing within the forest. After several hours of traveling, Jianchen finally arrived with both Shenfang and Sans in Lore City. Jianchen slowly walked in between several trees as he looked at the nearby city walls. His expression was quite complex, but that was because right around here was the home of his family. Although several years had passed, Lore City was still the same as it always was. Even the ancient scars from time and past battles had remained where they were. Outside the city gates, plenty of people could be seen traveling in and out. Perhaps it was because of the war, but there was plenty of men heading into the city. There was only the elderly, since all of the able-bodied men had already been recruited for the war effort. Jianchen looked at the close-by Lore City for a moment before walking with Shenfang and Sans to the city gates. Now that the war was all but over, Jianchen had been able to enter the city without any obstructions. After leaving Shenfang and Sans at an inn for the time being, Jianchen left almost impatiently for the Changyang Manor. Shortly after that, Jianchen arrived at the clan's manor. There wasn't any noticeable changes to the Changyang Manor from a few years back. The same red wall continued to circle the Changyang Manor, with several trees planted around it. Their lush green leaves fell at random intervals, painting a beautiful scene. Jianchen walked toward the gates to the manor only to see it shut tight. Neither guards could be seen nor could any sounds could be heard. It was almost as if it was completely quiet in the world. Jianchen spread out his omnipresence to cover the insides of the manor, so that he could see the scenery inside the manor in his mind. There were very few people to be seen inside. Only 50 soldiers could be seen scattered about, with a decent amount of servants and maids scurrying about. In the past, there had been well over 1,000 people always busy within the manor, but now the manor was like a shrine. The elderly man that Jianchen had never been able to gauge the strength of before came into sight. Now, Jianchen was finally able to see his strength. He was a 4th cycle Earth Saint Master, and currently the only one around. Walking up to the gates, Jianchen's hand knocked against the doors with a loud reverberating sound. Not too long after, the heavy gates began to open, as an ordinary-looking middle-aged man could be seen. Looking at Jianchen with suspicion, he spoke. "Youngster, who are you?" Although he could not be considered courteous, his tone still retained some manners. Jianchen said nothing, and instead pressed against the gates with a little more force. As a result, the heavy doors swung open, revealing the giant courtyards behind it. "Who are you? What do you want?" The man's face grew a little accusatory, and his voice even attracted the attention of a nearby squadron. Jianchen tilted his head up high and spoke to the man. "Do you remember the 4th master of the Changyang clan, Changyang Xiangtian?" Absolutely no emotion could be detected upon his face. "What 4th master? What Changyang Xiangtian? Youngster, you are spewing rubbish. State your name immediately." The man's eyes immediately hardened into a terrifying glare. At this moment, the squadron arrived by the gates. There were 10 people in total, and aside from 3 middle-aged men, there was another 30-year-old youth. When those 3 soldiers heard the name Changyang Xiangtian, their faces immediately registered shock before quickly running forward. Intensely staring at Jian Chen, one of them spoke with impatience. "Who are you? Have you seen the 4th master, Changyang Xiangtian?" Those 3 soldiers had been soldiers for the Changyang clan for a decent amount of time. They had once seen Changyang Xiangtian before, and had been involved in the search for him. Thus, when they heard the name, they were instantly familiar with the name. Jian Chen remained silent, and looked at the 3 soldiers that were eyeing him. He didn't recognize a single one of them. But in truth, with so many soldiers, it was impossible for him to recognize every single one of them. The 3 soldiers couldn't help but intently scrutinize Jian Chen's face. Then, one of them immediately came to a realization and cried out, "You look exactly like the 4th master. You're the 4th master, Changyang Xiangtian." Hearing this, the other 2 soldiers blanched with shock. Looking closer at Jian Chen, they were able to recognize the familiar characteristics to his face despite the years of aging. This youth in front of him was their 4th master, Changyang Xiangtian. The man who had opened the gates could only look at Jian Chen skeptically. He hadn't been at the Changyang manor for long, and had never heard of such a name before. Jian Chen felt a stab of pain in his heart. He had left the manor several years ago, and had thought that the entire clan would have forgotten about him. What he didn't think was that some of the guards would still remember him. Chapter 435. The clan leader has returned. You really are the 4th master? One of the soldiers asked Jian Chen nervously, while the other 2 looked at him expectantly. Only the soldiers behind the 3 showed confused expressions on their faces. Jian Chen nodded his head. "Correct, I am Changyang Xiangtian. I didn't think that after so long, people would still remember me." You really are the 4th master. It's the real 4th master. The 4th master has returned." The 3 soldiers all immediately cried out with emotions after his response. They had been dispatched many times to look for Changyang Xiangtian in the past years, only to end up with no clues. Searching everywhere for an entire day, they had never come by any success. When each attempt ended in failure, they had begun to lose hope. "Quickly tell the 4th lady," one of the quick-minded soldiers immediately ordered, sending another soldier running. Jian Chen walked through the gates with a light-hearted steps toward the room where his mother, Bai Yuntian, was. Now that he knew of Jian Chen's identity, the soldier who had opened the doors for him didn't dare block him. Secretly moving to the squadron, he asked beneath his breath, "Brothers, since when did the Changyang clan have a 4th master? Do you know who this Changyang Xiangtian is?" The soldiers shook their head in a hurry, utterly clueless to who Changyang Xiangtian was. "I've heard my uncle say that the clan leader had a 4th son. Aside from the eldest son, 2nd miss and 3rd master, there was still a 4th master. His name seemed to be Changyang Xiangtian. However, he had left the clan when he was still young and disappeared without anyone knowing where he went." A guard spoke. Several of the soldiers felt shocked, and looked to Jian Chen in a whole new light. Within the courtyards, Bai Yuntian and Yu Fengyan were talking to each other with worried expressions. On Bai Yuntian's face, the tear stains were quite noticeable. "4th sister, I can understand your feelings, so please don't be so worried. Xiangtian is a genius with unparalleled intellect. I'm sure that he is currently hiding without any danger in his way." Yu Fengyan spoke gently. She had already repeated these words many times before. Over the years, whenever Bai Yuntian was feeling down, it was Yu Fengyan who comforted her. She comforted her with the same words each time without any variety to what she said. "4th lady, 4th lady." Suddenly, frantic cries could be heard coming from outside the courtyard. The sound of the gates being knocked on was quite loud, allowing everyone to know that someone was pounding on it with enough strength to break it down. The 2 women were frightened by the sudden knocks on the door. From her seated position, Yu Fengyan spoke loudly. "Who's making so much racket? Have you forgotten your manners?" Hearing Yu Fengyan's voice, the soldiers outside the gates quivered for a moment before instantly remembering just why they were making a huge racket. Putting down their fists, one of them spoke. Fourth lady, there's a report. The fourth master, he has returned. Upon hearing mention of the fourth master, Yu Fengyan and Bai Yintian both didn't know how to react. They were both stunned since even the fact that there was a fourth master was an unknown fact to most of the soldiers. Fourth master, could it be? Yu Fengyan suddenly thought with a startling realization, before revealing a doubtful expression. Xiang'er, it's Xiang'er, Bai Yintian cried out before quickly running from the room with surprising speed. At the same time, the white-robed Jianshen had entered the courtyard. When the doors opened, he could only see a familiar face, and quickly came to a grinding stop. His entire body froze still as he looked at the white-robed figure of his mother, Bai Yintian. Even he started to feel tears in his eyes. Bai Yintian saw Jianshen turn the corner. Although Jianshen's current appearance was drastically different from before, Bai Yintian had watched Jianshen grow up. She would be able to recognize him anywhere. The mother and son shared the same blood, and were tied together with a single string of fate. Right now, whether it was Jianshen or Bai Yintian, both sides could feel an indescribable feeling within them. The separated mother and son were finally reunited once more. Bai Yintian could only stand right in front of her door with her eyes looking straight at the familiar, handsome face of Jianshen. Her entire body began to shake with emotions as tears began to flow out from her eyes like a spring. Yu Fengyan had walked out as well only to see Bai Yintian standing still. The moment she saw Jianshen, her face suddenly froze in astonishment and utter disbelief. Jianshen had left the Changyang clan when he was 15 years old, meaning he was still an inexperienced child when he left. That age was not the proper age to head out into the world by oneself, especially with the Huayan sect chasing after him. The probability of survival was practically zero. Furthermore, Jianshen had disappeared without a trace as well. From that day forth, he hadn't left a single clue behind for even the Changyang clan to find him. Thus everyone had been convinced that Jianshen had already been captured by the Huayan sect, and had died a destitute death in a nameless grave. When Jianshen had left, he was an inexperienced 15-year-old that had no bodyguards. How would he be able to escape from an experienced sect like the Huayan sect? Although Yu Fengyan had used all sorts of words at first to console Bai Yintian, they had all been white lies since she too hadn't believed that Jianshen would have been able to survive. But now, the person that had left without a word had finally returned out of nowhere. This made Yu Fengyan feel as if she was dreaming, that this was not really happening. Jianshen's eyes had tears to them as he slowly moved toward Bai Yintian. He could only feel anguish at the sallow face of his mother. Mother, your child has finally returned home. Jianshen's voice had a whimper to it as he finished speaking before tears finally began to flow down his cheeks. Bai Yintian quickly wrapped Jianshen in a tear-filled hug as she began to pour out the feelings she had felt over the years. Xiang'er, my child, you've finally come home. Your mother has missed you so much. Mother, I'm sorry. Your child was unfilial. Jianshen hugged his mother as the both of them continued to freely cry tears of joy. The fourth master has returned. He really has returned. I didn't think that the fourth master was still alive. We all thought that he had come across trouble. Within the courtyards, more and more soldiers that knew about Jianshen began to gather, while even those soldiers who didn't know about him started to talk to each other in surprise. Yu Fengyan finally snapped out of her delusion and looked at the two. She could only feel joy in her heart as she spoke. Xiang'er, you've returned safe and sound. Your second aunt truly feels happy for you. Let's have the two of you come inside to talk. After she spoke, Jianshen and Bai Yintian followed Yu Fengyan into the inner rooms, before she left to give the two some privacy. There were many things to be said. Within the manor, news that the fourth master had suddenly returned home spread through the place like wildfire. In some time, the entire manor was stunned. Even the eldest aunt Ling Long and the third aunt Bai Yushuang heard the news. Although they were shocked, the two of them did not go see him. Ling Long was looking after her child Changyang, who was still in a stupefied daze, that did not care for Jianshen's return at that given moment. Bai Yushuang's relationship with Jianshen's mother hadn't been the best, and so his return instead soured her mood. Jianshen remained in his mother's room, and continued to speak of every single event that had transpired after he left the Changyang manor. Several things were hidden from his mother since they were far too shocking, and Jianchen didn't think his mother would believe him if he told her of those events. If he said them now, the entire compound would come to hear about them and be surprised as well. From day to dawn, Jianchen did not step outside. The mother and son continued to talk for hours on end. Suddenly, a large group of magical beast mounts stopped outside the manor. The majority of the riders were all sturdy-looking men that possessed powerful auras. In total, there were around 800 men that formed a giant line. Stopping right outside the gates, 2 men immediately opened the doors and shouted, "The clan leader has returned, hurry and receive him." Changyang Ba stepped off his Class 4 magical beast mount and tidied up his messy clothes for a moment before striding to the gates. Right behind him, every rider started to dismount as well to follow him inside quietly and obediently. As soon as he entered the gates, one of the servants came rushing over with a joyful expression. With a bow he said, "Clan leader, good news. The 4th master has returned." Chapter 436. The feeling of returning home. As soon as Changyang Ba entered the gates, one of the servants came rushing over with a joyful expression. With a bow he said, "Clan leader, good news. The 4th master has returned." Changyang Ba looked stunned for a moment. He had gone for several years without hearing about the 4th master, to the point where hearing about it felt a little foreign to him. Quickly, he snapped out of his befuddlement, and his eyes became daggers as he spoke at the servant. "What did you just say?" "Clan leader, the 4th master, he has returned." The servant spoke once more with tears in his eyes. Changyang Ba's eyes widened as he grew still, and an incredulous look overtook his face. It had already been several years since his 4th son, Changyang Xiangtian, had left the manor without any news or clues to his whereabouts. In his heart, he had secretly feared that he would never see his talented 4th son ever again. Thus he had felt wounded. Now, the 4th son he had originally thought dead had unexpectedly returned. He was not prepared for such a feeling, and could barely believe his ears. "Are you speaking the truth? Xiang'er has returned?" Changyang Ba's eyes stared intensely at the servant as his voice began to tremble with longing and hope. "Clan leader, my words are absolutely true. The 4th lady and 2nd lady have already confirmed his identity. There can be no mistake." The servant replied. Hearing that the 4th master, who had mysteriously vanished many years ago, had returned caused the soldiers behind Changyang Ba to become stupefied. Each one looked at each other in complete shock and confusion. Many of them were senior figures within the clan, and had known about what had transpired in regards with the 4th master. In their hearts, they had already thought that the 4th master had already left this world. But not a single one of them had thought he would return just as suddenly as his departure. "Where is Xiang'er?" Changyang Ba quickly asked. This sudden development was extremely important to him. After all, he was his father. "The 4th master is currently in the 4th lady's room," the servant replied. In an instant, Changyang Ba's figure flickered away as he sped toward Bai Yuntian's room. At this moment, Jianchen, his mother, and Yu Fengyan were sitting in the same room and talking to each other. The entire topic revolved around where Jianchen had been the entire time he was gone. Although Jianchen tried his best to water down the life or death situations he had experienced, the 2 women were still utterly frightened out of their skins. For her child, Bai Yuntian's tears had stained her clothes a long time ago, and her eyes were a puffy red. The 2 women began to think about just how chaotic the outside world was. Neither of the 2 could imagine being out alone in such a world, or how torturous being in the terrifying magical beast mountain range would be. To be faced with so many life or death situations, both Bai Yuntian and Yu Fengyan felt their hearts about to shatter from fright. Bang! Suddenly, the thick doors to the room slammed open as the black-robed Changyang Ba stumbled into the room. Hurriedly looking around, he scoured the room in search for the figure of Jianchen. My husband! My husband!" Yu Fengyan and Bai Yuntian stood up quickly and cried out in surprise. Almost as if he hadn't heard the 2, Changyang Ba's eyes landed upon Jianchen's body, and instantly felt the emotions well up inside of him. His eyes began to flow with tears at the sight of Jianshen's figure. He could still recognize his son, despite the drastic changes. Jianshen looked to his father with just as much emotion. As soon as the two saw each other, Jianshen's lips began to move slightly. Father. At the sound of being called father, Changyangba's entire body was frozen in place, before he stumbled closer to Jianshen. Slowly, he studied Jianshen's entire figure before finally smiling. Xiang'er, you've grown. Finally, the tears that were pooled up in his eyes began to flow down. Jianshen and Changyangba had not seen each other for many years. After several words, Changyangba moved back to his own room, leaving Jianshen behind with his mother and Yu Fengyan. The war had just ended, and the soldiers of the Changyang clan had only just returned. As the clan leader, Changyangba had many things to do, and was thus very busy. With the return of all the soldiers and a critical figure of the clan, the entire manor bustled with activities and light. Many of the rooms that had been empty for a long time were cleaned and filled with light. At the same time, news of Changyang Xiangtian's return spread to each and every single one of the returning soldiers, much to their shock and surprise. Jianshen only left the room of his mother when it was night time. Personally accompanied by her back to his own room, he was then greeted by two maids. Although Jianshen hadn't been back in this room for a very long time, the room was in the same shape it had always been. There was not a single speck of dust to be seen, and even the arrangements to his room looked untouched. Xiang'er, it's getting late, you should get some rest. Bai Yuntian's eyes reflected with a motherly love as she looked at her child. Jianshen nodded his head. Mother, you should rest up as well. Afterward, Bai Yuntian left Jianshen's room, leaving behind the two maids. Fourth master, please allow this servant to help you change your clothes. One of the maids spoke softly. Seeing just how handsome Jianshen was, the two servant girls couldn't help but feel a little red in the face. The two maids were around 20 to 28 years old. Although their beauty was not outstanding, they were still quite pretty in regards to the entire Lore City. With how strong the Changyang clan was, just how could any regular person enter the illustrious clan? Jianshen looked around his room with a nostalgic eye before speaking up. You two can leave for now. I'd like to rest for a moment. If there's not anything important, please leave me be. Yes, the two maids spoke and left the room, but their eyes reflected their disappointment. Not only was Jianshen the fourth master of the Changyang clan, but he was also very handsome. Both of the maids secretly wished to join beds with Jianshen, and perhaps make the leap to become a phoenix. Jianshen stood in the center of the room, as he looked around at each and every single item he had left behind. His mind couldn't help but think back to life when he was younger. A series of memories continued to fly through his mind, causing Jianshen to feel it hard to rest. Home. This is home, my home. I've finally returned. Jianshen couldn't help but mutter to himself in a stupefied manner, in some pain. He waited for this day for a very long time. The very thought of coming home had occurred to him many times before, and now, his wish had finally came true, bringing peace to his mind. For the sake of having today happen and reuniting with his Changyang clan, Jianshen had sacrificed many things and done many Herculean tasks. He had traveled the line between life and death many times, and had nearly lost his life once. If it were not for the azure and violet sword spirits, he would have long since left this world, never to return. He had used his own blood to mark the path back home. Just thinking about the trail of memories that happened after he left, Jianshen found them hard to stomach. Finally, his eyes let out a transparent but shiny teardrop. MRRR. As if sensing the unrest in Jianshen's heart, the white tiger cub grabbed onto Jianshen's neck and began to purr as it rubbed its head against Jianshen's face. A purring sound could be heard, as if trying to console Jianshen. Jianshen slowly brought himself to his bed, and without any last thoughts, Jianshen fell asleep. That night, Jianshen's rest was utterly peaceful and free from worry. This was the very first true period of sleep he had since leaving. It was very comforting. It was unlike the other times where he had to maintain a guarded composure. The tiger cub didn't sleep at all, and instead curled itself by Jianshen's body. Its head continued to look left and right as it observed its surroundings. Xiang'er, are you awake? By the second morning, Bai Yintian came by Jian Chen's room. Waking up, Jian Chen felt his body refreshed and very light-hearted. A feeling he hadn't had in a very long time. Was this the feeling of returning home? Xiang'er, did you sleep well? Bai Yuntian's motherly nature returned back to its original radiance as she asked her child. Jian Chen's return caused her to feel extremely cheerful, and her entire body seemed to shine, indicating she had slept well for once. Jian Chen and his mother spoke several words before leaving his room toward the eating hall for breakfast. As the two walked to the eating hall, Jian Chen could only think about the memories of back then. Every day he had followed his mother to eat breakfast as well. This feeling he was having felt extremely consoling. As Jian Chen and his mother entered the eating hall, the second aunt Yu Fengyan and third aunt Bai Yushuang were already eating their meals. By Bai Yushuang's side, a noble-looking youth could be seen. His age was not all that different from Jian Chen. It was Jian Chen's elder brother Changyang Ke. After several years of not seeing each other, the third aunt's face did not change much. However, Changyang Ke's face seemed to have dropped slightly as his eyes looked to Jian Chen. His appearance was quite majestic with his pale skin, and although his age was far enough away from Jian Chen, his own appearance could match him. Xiang'er has returned, third aunt, take a look. After so many years, Xiang'er has grown even more handsome. He could practically charm any woman under the heavens. Yu Fengyan laughed as she looked at Jian Chen with some concern. Chapter 437. Family dispute. By Yintian could only smile at Yu Fengyang's words. When it came to her child, she loved him dearly. Bai Yushuang looked at Jian Chen with furrowed eyes. Xiangtian, just what reason did you come back? The Huayun sect isn't someone our Changyang clan can go against. Just what trouble are you trying to give us? Yu Fengyan and Bai Yintian were both shocked by Bai Yushuang's words. She essentially objected to Jian Chen's return almost as if she never wanted him to return at all. The third aunt's words caused Jian Chen to feel slightly angry, but before he could say anything, Yu Fengyan beat him to it. Third sister, your words are completely unnecessary. Although the Huayun sect is indeed very strong, our Changyang clan is not an easy target to bully. We have Changbai with us. You must know of the fact that he was able to kill many Heaven Saint Masters at the northern stronghold. As long as Changbai is here, the Huayun sect will not have an easy time moving against us. Xiangtian forced to leave his home, and for the past few years, had endured much suffering in the outside world. Now that Xiangtian has returned, we should be happy, not throwing cold words at him. Bai Yushuang gave a cold snort before speaking ominously. Xiangtian has never been an obedient child, and always enjoyed causing trouble. A few years ago, he hurt my Kuer, and later caused trouble with the Huayun sect despite only being there for a short amount of time. Now that he has returned, who knows what other trouble he has brought with him. Yu Fengyan and Bai Yuntian both looked speechless. They never would have thought that Bai Yushuang thought that way about Jian Chen. Jian Chen was a little angry at this. His eyes began to shine dangerously with a sharp light, making Bai Yushuang a little afraid to look at him. Third aunt, I know that you object to my being here, but you needn't trouble yourself with my concerns. Whatever trouble I cause, I will naturally absolve them, so that they will not burden the clan. Jian Chen spoke. With just you. Bai Yushuang gave a look of loathing before speaking eccentrically. Fine then. You can show us just what you've learned from the outside world. Let's see you resolve the matter with the Huayun sect. Do not let the clan suffer for your troubles. The debt the Huayun sect has with me will naturally be returned. Jian Chen spoke emotionlessly. Jian Chen's words were brassy and arrogant in the eyes of Bai Yushuang, infuriating her. Mockingly she spat out. Xiangtian, this is not me belittling you, but the words of truth. Think about how strong the Huayun sect is. Have you forgotten about them so quickly? Going against the Huayun sect by yourself? Even imbeciles can dream, I suppose. Jian Chen's head tilted with a dangerous gleam in his eyes. He had truly been angered by Bai Yushuang's words, but in the end, she was still his aunt and elder. Jian Chen had no wish to have any ill will with any of his family members. Since he truly cherished his entire family as a whole, he kept his mouth shut. His status was far different than what it was several years ago. Not only was he stronger than any Heaven Saint Master, he was also the imperial protector of the Qinhuang Kingdom. With such a status, a trifling matter like this wasn't worth splitting hairs over. But Bai Yushuang's words and attitude was burned into Jian Chen's memory. Third sister, you're older than this. There is no need to cause such difficulty toward a child. Yu Fengyan's eyes narrowed with anger. What difficulty? My words are completely true. Bai Yushuang squinted to look at Yu Fengyan without conceding her point at all. Yu Fengyan began to grow even angrier. Her chest began to swell with fury as she looked at Bai Yushuang. Third sister Yu. Second aunt. There's no need for this. Jian Chen interrupted before giving a cold stare to Bai Yushuang. The stare caused Bai Yushuang to feel a little timid, and instantly looked away from him. Third aunt, I respect you as my aunt and elder, so I will not dwell on your words. But in the future, I hope you do not regret your words today. Jian Chen suddenly spoke. Ah, take a look, everyone, look. He dares threaten me. Bai Yushuang immediately seized an opportunity to speak against Jian Chen even more. With her hands at her waist, she pressed on. Regret? What will I regret? Changyang Xiangtian, are you going to use your own hands to teach your third aunt a lesson? Everyone look closely. See how this child talks, how he doesn't respect his elders. His delusional words, just how outrageous is he? Yu Fengyan, and Bai Yuntian's face hardened with anger. At that moment, a strong and firm voice could suddenly be heard. Haha, how lively it is today. Everyone seems happy. A simply dressed Changyang Ba could be seen walking into the hall with a cheerful smile, indicating just how happy he was. Changyang Ba was a 40-year-old middle-aged man, with the facial appearance of a 30-year-old. Despite his age, he still had the handsome appearance from his earlier youth, and his presence had a unique air to him. My husband, father. Everyone immediately spoke at his appearance. Changyang Ba was extremely happy today. The moment he walked in, his eyes had immediately landed upon the figure of his fourth child, Xiangtian. Looking closely, the smile on his face only grew even wider, since in his eyes, his fourth child was not only handsome, but a man that was not to be trifled with. Truly, Changyang Ba thought him to be a dragon among men, and someone that would seize the opportunity to win at any moment. This combination of factors left Changyang Ba extremely happy, and he laughed out loud. This laughter expressed just how joyous he felt. With such an emotion, what more could a father want? After calming down, Changyang Ba sat beside Jian Chen. Xiang'er, you must have felt wronged after all these years. Jian Chen immediately felt warm at his father's words and replied, Not even a little. Your child has learned many things from the outside world. Good. Very good. Xiang'er is a true scholar. Changyang Ba could only use those words to describe just how happy he was with Jian Chen. Seeing just how calm, well-tempered and handsome Jian Chen was, he couldn't feel any more gratified. He knew that his youngest child had truly grown up. Seeing how Changyang Ba was treating Jian Chen, the nearby Bai Yushuang looked extremely unhappy. Since Changyang Ba was concentrating on Jian Chen, he naturally missed Bai Yushuang's face. Ai! Turning around, Changyang Ba suddenly remembered something painful, and the joy faded away from his face, only for a pain-filled expression to replace it. Unfortunately, Ahu. At his words, Yu Fengyan and Bai Yunti on both sides as well, feeling for Changyang Hu's disaster. Jian Chen immediately thought to his elder brother Changyang, who instantly felt sad. Father, your child wishes to see eldest brother. Changyang Ba shook his head slightly without saying a word. Jian Chen could understand that his father was in deep pain. How could he not? Jian Chen and Changyang Hu were extremely good friends. But now that Changyang Hu was in such a serious state, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel pained as well. Father, your child knows what has happened to eldest brother. Please don't worry, he will recover, he will definitely be healed. Jian Chen spoke. Changyang Ba shook his head once more and sighed. It is easier said than done. To regrow his limbs, it would require a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. Within the Tianyuan continent, not only are they exceedingly rare and hard to find, but we do not have any power to invite one even if we found one. A person like that is a person in a world different from ours. Jianchen knew just how esteemed a Class 7, Radiant Saint Master was. They were an existence that was as high as a Saint Ruler. Radiant Saint Masters were rare, and it was also hard for them to advance in rank. They were not like their fighting counterparts, and so a Class 7, Radiant Saint Master was an extremely high-class existence. "Father, your child wishes to see eldest brother," Jianchen stated once more. "Fine then." Changyangba finally agreed. Without eating, he immediately walked to where Changyang, who was with Jianchen, and the other 3 ants. Jianchen walked behind Changyangba into the room. Right now, Changyang, who was motionless on his bed, staring silently at the ceiling above him. On his motionless body, for bloodied bandages could be seen wrapped around his limbs. Changyang, whose mother Ling Long sat dejectedly by his side. Her hair was a mess and her face sallow. Both eyes were bloodshot and tear stains could be seen on her face, evidence that she had not washed her face in many days. "My lady, I beg of you, please eat something. You've gone several days without food." By her side, several maids were crying out to her with several plates of food and a washing bowl ready. Changyangba sighed and waved the maids away. Standing by the bed with a sorrowful look, he glanced down at his eldest son, Changyang, who had all 4 limbs cut off, and wasn't even able to eat or drink by himself. A life like this was worse than death. Chapter 438. Class 6. Radiant Saint Master Jianchen slowly walked to the side of the bed and faced Changyang, who, gently whispering, he spoke. "Big brother, do you recognize me? I am your 4th brother, Changyang Xiangtian." Changyang, whose listless eyes regained a dim spirit to them, as he slowly looked to Jianchen's figure. With little emotion to his face, Changyang, who let out a pained smile before speaking with a rough voice. "Fo 4th brother. You've finally returned." Jianchen let out a small smile. He and Changyang, who had been good friends since they were small, but seeing him as he was now caused Jianchen's heart to pang with grief. Jianchen turned around to look at the people behind him. "Father, eldest aunt, I have a few words I want to say to eldest brother. Would it be possible to be alone for a moment?" Changyangba nodded slightly. "Xiangtian, you placate your eldest brother now, okay?" With that, Changyangba left with the other 2 ants, leaving behind Changyang, whose mother Ling Long, who was still standing there with a dejected look. Jianchen walked up to Ling Ling's side and spoke softly. "Eldest aunt, you needn't worry. I will definitely let eldest brother recover. Please let me console eldest brother for now. I have a method to help him recover. I first must have everyone out of the room, so I can speak to him." Hearing this, Ling Long's eyes swiveled to him with a look of realization. Her arms trembled as she reached to grab at his hands. "Xiangtian, your aunt begs of you. You must console your brother. Help him. Help him want to live. Your aunt begs you." Ling Long's face was filled with a pleading expression. She knew clearly what condition her son was in, and she knew that he had already lost his will to live. He couldn't take care of himself, drink or eat by himself, so he simply wanted to die. Living in such a fashion was a tormenting experience. Jianchen nodded his head. "Eldest aunt, you needn't worry. I won't let you down." Jianchen spoke firmly. Jianchen's words were enough for the eldest aunt, causing Ling Long to clutch at the straws of hope. Her originally waning spirit finally rekindled once more as she left the room, leaving behind Jianchen and Changyang, who, seeing such a familiar face, Changyang, whose eyes began to tear up as he thought back to the memories he had of the times in Kargath Academy. He could clearly remember when he had been bullied by Cheng Mingxiang of the Huayan sect, who had hurt him until he was bruised. His 4th brother had taken revenge for him by fighting Cheng Mingxiang and a dozen other students. In the end, Cheng Mingxiang's arm had been cut off, forcing Jianchen to leave his home against his will. The events from those years haunted Changyang, whose heart. He knew that he had been the cause that had forced his youngest brother to flee from his home. It was his fault that his 4th brother had fallen to such disgrace. This had always made Changyang who feel guilty, since he was the one that implicated his own brother. When his 4th brother had gone silent for years after leaving, Changyang, whose heart had begun to think of the worst. Now that his 4th brother had finally returned, Changyang, who couldn't help but feel relieved, and that relief nearly helped him forget about his own wounds. Jianchen sat by Changyanghu's side. "Eldest brother, I know what you are feeling, but you must pull yourself together. Give me some time, and your fourth brother will definitely help restore your limbs." At those words, Changyanghu's face grew dim. Sighing, he replied, "Fourth brother, you don't understand. In order to regrow a limb, one must have the strength of a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master. Your eldest brother will never be able to stand again." Changyanghu's face grew dark with grief, and his eyes began to grow dim once more. Anyone could see that he was already starting to lose his strength to continue living. Jianchen didn't say another word. Instead, he extended his arm, and suddenly, all of the radiant saint force in the area began to gather in between his hands. In a flash, it had formed a milky white glow that started to shine brighter and brighter in intensity. Dazzling the eyes, the shiny ball of light lit up the entire room. If it were not for the fact that it was day, those on the outside would be able to see the strong rays of light radiating from the room. On the other side of the door, Jianchen's mother, Bai Yuntian, looked astonished at the radiant saint force flying through the sky into the room Jianchen and Changyanghu were in. Astonished, the look on her face grew to reflect her shock. What a strong amount of radiant saint force! Who could be doing this? Could it be? Bai Yuntian suddenly realized something. As a fellow radiant saint master, she was able to detect the ripple of radiant saint force and the intensity in which it was gathering at. What startled her even more was the fact that she had never seen such a fast or strong gathering rate before. Only a Class 5 Radiant Saint Master would be able to accomplish such a feat at the very least. After leaving Changyanghu's room, Changyangba and the other ants were still feeling remorseful, so they had not yet noticed Bai Yuntian's sudden change in expression. Inside the room, Changyanghu could only stare in utter shock at the white light in between Jianchen's hands. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, but he knew that this type of light was the radiant saint force that only radiant saint masters could wield. Jianchen's hands began to press down as the ball of radiant saint force started to converge around Changyanghu's body. After being surrounded by such a pure amount of radiant saint force, Changyanghu suddenly felt something he had never felt before. It made him feel comfortable. This type of feeling was something that the low-class Radiant Saint Masters would never be able to accomplish. After a brief period of time, Jianchen finally put down his hands and stopped the Radiant Saint Force from flowing. Experiencing the comfortable bubble of Radiant Saint Force, Changyanghu's previously pale face had some semblance of color to it. Even the wounds around his limbs had healed. In such a small amount of time, Jianchen had accomplished something none of the other Radiant Saint Masters had been able to do. Changyanghu couldn't even speak, because of all the shock he was feeling. He could only look at Jianchen for an extremely long amount of time in silence. Jianchen sat back down. Seeing the look of shock on his brother's face, Jianchen had a faint look of contentment. "Eldest brother, you may not know this, but not only is your fourth brother a fighter, but I am also a Radiant Saint Master. I am only a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master, but there is only a few steps away until I reach the Class 7 realm. Given some time, I will heal your body." Changyanghu's face immediately began to surge with emotion while tearing up. His voice began to quaver as he spoke. "Fourth brother, are your words, are they true? Are you really a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master?" At this moment, Changyanghu finally felt the strength to continue on living. Jianchen gave a faint smile. "Eldest brother, did you not feel it? The Radiant Saint Force I can control is far stronger than any Radiant Saint Master that treated you in the past. Eldest brother, you needn't worry anymore. In some time, I will be able to regrow your limbs and make you normal once more. You must promise me to live until that day comes." Changyanghu couldn't find any words to describe the feeling in his heart. At Jianchen's words, Changyanghu had flung away any thoughts about wanting to die, and his hope to live had burst with a new fire. "Fourth brother, don't worry. Your eldest brother will definitely wait for you. Your eldest brother will definitely continue to live." Seeing the shadows of death disappear from his eldest brother, Jianchen had a happy smile on his face before calling out to the people outside. Changyangba and Ling Long both walked in, only to discover Changyang who lying in the bed in high spirits. All of the depression he had initially felt had been wiped away without a single trace of remnants. This change shocked and confused everyone on just what Jianchen had said to create such an effect. Bai Yuntian's eyes looked to her child with a loving look, having already guessed what had just happened. "Ahu, are you okay?" Ling Long had noticed the change in her son's expression and spoke in concern. Seeing his mother's sallow face, Changyang who couldn't help but tear up as he whimpered, "Mother, don't worry anymore. Your child is fine now. Your child will definitely continue to live." At those words coming from her child, Ling Long suddenly felt the giant boulder weighing down on her rise up. Laying on the bed, she began to wail with tears. Just at that moment, a group of 1,000 men entered Lore City. Many of them carried a bright yellow banner that floated in the wind. On those flags, the giant words Huayin sect could be seen. Now that the war had finally died down, all of the major powers that had took part in the war had returned home. The Huayin sect had been returning from the southern stronghold and were passing through Lore City to reach their sect monastery. Leading the group was a middle-aged man. This was the current patriarch of the Huayin sect, Cheng Fei, and was also Cheng Mingxiang's father. At that moment, a figure in pure black quickly ran over and reached the Huayin sect's group, before being blocked by the two magical beast riders at the front. The patriarch immediately recognized the man and said, "Let him pass." The two middle-aged men, who blocked the man, immediately split way to let the black-robed figure run past. Getting close to the patriarch, he began to whisper something to him. Suddenly, Cheng Fei's eyes shined nastily as he barked out, "Changyang Xiangtian has returned home? Is that true?" "It is absolutely true." The figure spoke honestly. Cheng Fei's eyes grew bright as he waved his hand. "Advance. Continue toward Changyang Manor." The Huayin sect immediately changed path and started to trek toward the Changyang clan. Chapter 439. The Huayin sect at the gates Changyang Manor. Jianchen and the rest were still in Changyang, whose room talking to each other, when a sound could be heard outside. "Clan leader, there is an urgent report for you." At this, Changyang Ba gave the signal for the maid to open the door. Upon the doors opening up, one of the housekeepers immediately came frantically running in. "Clan leader, something major has happened. The Huayin sect is nearing our Changyang Manor." Changyang Ba's face immediately drained of color as he waved his servant away and wrinkled his eyebrows nervously. If Xianger's return was leaked and they caught wind of it, that means they still have not forgotten about the ordeal. Aside from Jian Chen, everyone else turned white, Bai Yintian the most. Hurriedly grabbing at Jian Chen's hands, her face began to show her worry for him. After being apart for so many years, before finally being able to see her child again, Bai Yintian did not want Jian Chen to be forced to be a wanderer once more. Jian Chen guessed at what his mother was thinking. Feeling a small twinge of pain in his heart, he spoke, "Mother, don't worry. Your child won't repeat the actions of the past." "My husband, quickly call Changbai." We heard what Changbai was able to do at the northern stronghold. With their two experts, I'm sure even the Huayin sect won't act rashly. Yu Fengyang spoke with some panic and worry. Changyang Ba shook his head. Changbai and all of the other Heaven Saint Masters are currently at the Imperial Palace with the Imperial advisors from the Qinhuang Kingdom. This is a crucial time for them to improve relations with a superior kingdom. Who would give up such a chance? I believe that Changbai won't be back for some time. Then what do we do? Changbai is our only Heaven Saint Master. With him not around, how can we deal with the Huayin sect? Now that they are in Lore City, it won't be long until they arrive. Yu Fengyan spoke with concern. Jianchen wasn't her child, but she was extremely worried for him nonetheless. "Second aunt, you needn't be concerned. I will take care of the Huayin sect myself." Jianchen said, "Silly child, don't speak such foolish words. The Huayin sect is far too strong for you to deal with by yourself." Bai Yuntian looked to Jianchen and held him in her arms, afraid that he'd leave once more. "Mother, your child is not afraid of the Huayin sect." Jianchen explained. Being at home warmed his heart and made him feel like a child again. almost forgetting about the troubles from the outside. Changyangba spoke. Xiang'er, you don't have to worry. Our Changyang clan has a precious secret that has improved our strength to more than what it was several years ago. Although we've lost many men from the war, the Huayan sect lost just as many. With Changbai's heaven-tier battle skill, our strength isn't all that far away from the Huayan sect. You stay here, and let me deal with the Huayan sect. The Huayan sect is the #1 sect in our Jessan kingdom, and has a power that even the imperial family is afraid of going against. Xiangtian cut off the arm of their only child, Cheng Mingxiang. This is something the Huayan sect won't reconcile over. If we don't bring out Changyang Xiangtian out, our clan will be in deep trouble. We are not at an advantage here. We should have Xiangtian run away now. Do not let him involve our entire clan, and cause the needless death of many. Bai Yushuang spoke with a displeased look. How could we do that? Xiangtian has already wandered the outside world for many years, and suffered more than enough for 9 lives. He has only just returned. How could we usher him back out into the cruel world so soon? Yu Fengyan spoke. Bai Yushuang snorted before looking at Yu Fengyan with a justified look. Open your eyes to see who stands by you. He is still alive and well, is he not? It matters not what he experienced on the outside. He is still living and obviously endured what little dangers he came across. If he continues to stay here, our entire clan will be in danger. Second aunt, I know you worry for Xiangtian, but I am only looking out for the entire clan. Everyone here will stay their mouths. Changyangba boomed, shocking everyone. He gave a hard look to Bai Yushuang that did nothing to conceal his anger. No one make another sound, I've already made my decision. The Huayan sect may be strong, but our Changyang clan is not a clan that can easily be bullied. Xiang'er, you stay here and do not leave. I will call some men, and we shall see how savage the Huayan sect really is. The Changyang clan will no longer fear them. Flicking the sleeves to his robe, Changyangba left the area. Quickly, the peaceful compound grew frantic once more as everyone heard the news with shocked breaths. Confused steps ran across the compound, as the servants and maids ran to call every single warrior. Bai Yushuang glared angrily at Jianchen. You truly are the evil omen of our Changyang clan. Ever since your birth, you've caused nothing but trouble, and now our Changyang clan will be led to ruin because of you. Yu Fengyan and Bai Yintian both grew hard in the face. Bai Yushuang's words invoked anger in them. Even Changyang, who turned his head to look at Bai Yushuang icily. Third aunt, how could say such words to fourth brother? It was Cheng Mingxiang's fault, not our fourth brother's fault. Fourth brother took revenge as a substitute for me for my problems. If there is anyone to blame, it is me. Third sister, Ahu is correct. Xiangtian is not to blame for the past. As a primary saint, he was able to cut off the arm of a great saint. This type of strength is not something the Jessan kingdom sees often. We should be happy at his skill and not angered. Ling Long spoke. In the past, she had treated Jianchen indifferently, but now that Jianchen had saved her son, she was especially grateful and had a better opinion of him. Seeing the 3 sisters standing by Jianchen's side, Bai Yushuang knew continuing on would be pointless. With a last snort, she left the area. Ling Long walked up to Jianchen's side and grabbed Jianchen's hand. Xiangtian, please don't take any offense, and ignore your third aunt's words. The matter with the Huayan sect needn't be something to worry about. As long as Changbai is here, they will not dare be too presumptuous. However, that Changbai is truly a secretive person. I had no idea that he was that strong. If it weren't for the news from the northern stronghold, we never would have known. If we had known earlier, we would never have dared to let you run away. These years have truly been harsh for you. Ling Long spoke with an apologetic voice. Jianchen had a faint smile to his face. Eldest aunt, you needn't worry. Xiangtian is not someone that is easily bullied. Third aunt will sooner or later regret her words. Mother, you underestimate fourth brother. My fourth brother is a genius among geniuses. As an older brother, I am far beneath his power. Changyang, who smiled from his bed. In his heart, he was truly cheerful because he knew that his fourth brother was a Class 6, Radiant Saint Master. No one had ever heard of one within the Jesson kingdom before, and it was still rare among the entire continent. Seeing her child's face have such a happy smile, Ling Long felt happy as well. She knew that during Jian Chen's talk with Chang Yang-hu, he had somehow thrown away the despair he was feeling, causing him to want to live once more. So her gratitude for Jian Chen had grown immensely. At the same time, in the imperial palace of the Jesson kingdom, 5 of the imperial advisors from the Qinhuang kingdom gathered at a dining table. There were more than 10 people gathered there. Aside from the king, the other people were the other Heaven Saint Masters from the rest of kingdom. This was a gathering that no regular person could attend, and even the prince of the Jesson kingdom was no exception. At the banquet, all of the experts of the Jesson kingdom were giving toast to the 5 imperial advisors, with extremely respectful attitudes that reflected their attempts to curry favor with them. Although everyone was of the same tier of strength, their statuses were completely different, and the power they wielded was just as different. These men were all well-known figures that could fight with any other same-ranking person easily. Their strengths were enough to defeat anyone a rank higher than them. Combined with the heaven-tier battle skills they each had, their military might was on a whole nother level, which richly described their existence quite clearly. Honored imperial advisors, this king truly thanks the Qinhuang kingdom for their assistance. If the Qinhuang kingdom has any use for our lands, we shall do our best to provide it. Although our Jesson kingdom is quite weak, we will work as hard as an oxen. The king spoke. The 5 imperial advisors gave a polite smile at his words, but none of them knew just what connection the imperial protector had with the Jesson kingdom. They knew not which power he was friendly with, so they didn't dare offend anyone here. In the case they offended someone Jian Chen was friendly with, they would suffer the consequences for it. The 5 of them had followed Jian Chen from the Qinhuang kingdom in hopes of improving their relationship with him. Not a single one of them had wanted that to all go to waste. At that moment, the headmaster of Kargath Academy Kafir spoke. Honored imperial advisors, this one has a question I wish to ask. When this one was at the northern stronghold, this one heard that your distinguished kingdom had an imperial protector that came to save us. Might this one ask just who that honored figure is? Or if the honored imperial advisors can speak just how he knows the Jesson kingdom. Chapter 440. The strength of the Changyang clan. At that moment, the headmaster of Kargath Academy, Kafir, spoke. Honored imperial advisors, this one has a question I wish to ask. When this one was at the northern stronghold, this one heard that your distinguished kingdom had an imperial protector that came to save us. Might this one ask just who that honored figure is? Or if the honored imperial advisors can speak just how he knows the Jesson kingdom. Hearing the question, everyone seated at the table immediately looked to the gathered Qinhuang kingdom's imperial advisors. Kafir had asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Each one of them knew that as an imperial advisor for the Qinhuang kingdom, there should be no connection with the Jesson kingdom. The 5 imperial advisors looked at each other, as if to say something silently. They were all high-ranking members, so if it had been just any regular person inquiring about their imperial protector, they would have been extremely displeased. Earlier they hadn't dared reveal any discontent to the specific group in front of them, for fear of offending one of the groups their imperial protector was friends with. However, this was a good opportunity to find out more about their imperial protector. The 5 imperial protectors were silent for a moment before Xiao Tian spoke. Our imperial protector's name is Jian Chen. Might one of you recognize the name? At the name of Jian Chen, everyone revealed confused looks. They had never heard of such a name before. Seeing everyone's faces, the 5 imperial advisors all felt some confusion themselves. With their eyes, they could see that everyone was not familiar with such a name. This result had made them feel curious as well. Was there really a connection between the Jesson kingdom and their imperial protector? In another splendid palace hall, there was a loud clamor as many armored men were eating with joy and laughing with each other. Not only were there high-ranking commanders, there were also many representatives of the major powers to the kingdom. Even 2 of the king's sons were seated there as they gave toasts. Among them, The most prominent-looking figure was a youth in white robes. The youth looked to be around 27 years old, and although he wasn't a part of the royal family, every single person within the halls was toasting him. Even the two princes were actively talking with the youth, without any arrogance. If anyone who didn't know them had witnessed this sight, they would have assumed that the three of them were good friends. This youth was Ming Dong. He had originally been with the Changyang clan at the Western Stronghold. Originally, he had planned on going back with the Changyang clan after the war ended, but at the request of the king, he had found it hard to decline coming to participate in this feast. Jianshen, it's been half a year since you should have left the Holy Lands. Tomorrow I'll head to the Changyang clan and wait for your return. I don't doubt that we'll see each other soon. Then, we'll leave for the Tianyuan continent and defeat our foes. Ming Dong thought to himself back to the days when he and Jianshen were together. Not only did Ming Dong feel a brotherly camaraderie with Jianshen, but he was also indebted to him. If it were not for Jianshen saving his life way back before, he wouldn't have such power or Jianshen's assistance now. If he hadn't met Jianshen, he wouldn't have been able to go with Jianshen to Mercenary City and meet his uncle Tian. If he had not met his uncle Tian, he would have never been able to walk the path toward the heavens. After the feast ended, Ming Dong was invited to stay at the imperial palace for the night. Ever since the imperial advisors from the Qinhuang kingdom had found out there was no connection between the Jessen kingdom and Jianshen, they had lost any interest on staying here. So when the feast ended, they declined to stay and immediately left the imperial palace. When the 5 imperial advisors left, the experts of the Jessen kingdom had no desire to stay either and began to return home. Xiao Tian and the other 4 walked on the streets away from the palace for a while before Qing Xiaofan spoke. What should we do next? Where do we find the imperial protector? To Lore City. Xiao Tian spoke. Before he left, the imperial protector said that he would be staying in Lore City for a while. Let's go there. That works. However, I have a proposal. Since we don't get to do this often, why don't we go at our own pace? In any case, the war is over, and it's unlikely anything bad will happen to the imperial protector. So let us go at our own pace. Tian Luo spoke. After the other 4 men agreed, one of them spoke. And Tian Luo has a good idea. Since we are in no rush, we may as well take our time. Let us see the homeland where our imperial protector grew up, and see just what environment this was to bring about such a genius. Lore City's Changyang clan. The Huayan sect had already gathered outside the Changyang clan's gates. Inside, several hundred soldiers were gathered by ready to fight. The leader of the Changyang clan, Chengyang Ba, stood calmly in front of the crowd from the Huayan sect. Right behind him, several elders of the clan stood by with frosty glares toward their enemy. In front of them, the Huayan sect's patriarch Qingfei had a dozen men behind him as well. Their eyes were sharp like swords, and they were all Earth Saint masters. But the scars on their faces made them seem even more intimidating. Changyang Ba, our Huayan sect does not wish to quarrel with you. But Changyang Shangtian cut off the arm of my child, which is a sin I cannot forgive. If you do not hand him over to the Huayan sect, my Huayan sect will be forced to make a move. Cheng Fei spoke as he glared at Changyang Ba coldly. Changyang Ba snorted. Cheng Fei, that year has long since passed. It was clearly your son Cheng Mingxiang's fault, after he inflicted heavy wounds upon my own child, Ahu. The troubles that happened afterward came from the trouble that Cheng Mingxiang caused himself. If you wish to blame someone, then blame your own child for his lack of skill. A great saint having his arm cut off by a primary saint. Now that the strength of the Changyang clan was far greater than before, Changyang Ba was not afraid of the Huayan sect. So when it came to them, Changyang Ba freely spoke his mind without any filter. Cheng Fei's face grew dark as he regarded Changyang Ba with a dangerous voice. Changyang Ba, could it be that you wish to wage war with my Huayan sect? Although the patriarch is not here, our Changyang clan will not stand to be bullied. If you wish to force our hand, then we will naturally fight against you. Let us see just which power is stronger, your Huayan sect, or my Changyang clan. Changyang Ba spoke without any semblance of humor being heard in his voice. It is true that our patriarch is gone, but do not think our Changyang clan will be bullied like this. We will uphold the strength that our patriarch left behind, and right the wrongs that we have once committed those years ago." Another elder said. Cheng Fei's face grew even darker as he spoke. "Do you not understand the consequence of offending our Huayan sect? For the sake of a single person, the entire Changyang clan will fall. Do you truly want that?" Within Cheng Fei's heart, he didn't wish to fight with the Changyang clan, since he had heard of Chang Wuji's strength at the northern stronghold. At his current level, even if the two Heaven Saint Masters from the Huayan sect were to join hands, it would be unclear on whether or not their sect could win. Even if our Changyang clan falls and becomes a minor clan, the Huayan sect will not be much better off. Changyang Ba laughed coldly. The two sides remained still for a moment. Both of them had a little fear in their hearts since both clans knew that their strengths were nearly equal. In the case that a fight broke out, both sides would take a loss and lose power. After 4 hours of deadlock, a sudden energy could be seen flying from beyond the horizon. A small speck drew closer toward the Changyang clan, before slowly descending down from the sky. Slowly, it arrived right in front of the Huayan sect. This was an elder with a fiery red robe and white hair that accentuated his elderly face. Seeing this elder, the Huayan sect's patriarch Cheng Fei immediately looked excited. Speaking with hesitation, he spoke. "Ma master, have you broke through?" The elder nodded his head with a faint smile and excitement. "The heavens have not forgotten about me." I never would have guessed that at the final moment, I would suddenly grasp the concepts of the mysteries of the world and make the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master. Chapter 441. The Return of Chang Bai. "Master, you've finally broken through. That's wonderful." Cheng Fei's face lit up with excitement and joy. His master had somehow managed to become a Heaven Saint Master, just at the crux of the limit, meaning that the Huayan sect now had 3 Heaven Saint Masters. This was more than the Imperial Palace, and made them the strongest faction within the Jessen Kingdom. In Cheng Fei's mind, he could already see the Jessen Kingdom's king treating the Huayan sect with far more respect and submission. Seeing their Huayan sect gain another Heaven Saint Master, the men standing behind Cheng Fei all looked extremely happy and looked at the elder with respect. On the other side, everyone from the Changyang clan had a sour look on their faces as they all glared darkly. The Huayan sect having 3 Heaven Saint Masters wasn't something they wanted at all. "Saya, I didn't think that instead of dying, you would make the breakthrough." One of the elders from the Changyang clan spoke. Saya was the master of Cheng Fei, and was already 400 years old. Because he had a talent that was on par with a regular cultivator, it had taken him a very long time to reach the 6th cycle Earth Saint Master realm. He had been stuck at the final step for many dozens of years, without being able to comprehend the world energy at all. Since there wasn't much time until his natural lifespan was over, no one expected him to make the breakthrough at the final moment to become a Heaven Saint Master. Saya laughed out loud. "The heavens haven't yet forsaken me. Changyang Yinkong, I didn't think that you would be stuck here. If you don't hurry and work hard, you won't have any chances left." The elder replied without any further comment. "Master, your timing is perfect. My son Cheng Mingxiang's arm had been cut off by one of the Changyang clan. But for the sake of protecting that one, the Changyang clan has made us an enemy. I hope that Master will help settle things and take revenge for my son's arm." Cheng Fei spoke to Saya. Whether or not they would be able to take revenge on Changyang Xiangtian would depend on his master. Saya nodded his head. "I've heard about the matters with Cheng Mingxiang. This is a problem to our own honor. Rest assured, I will make sure justice is dealt with appropriately." After responding, Saya looked at the Changyang clan. "You would do best in bringing him out quickly. Otherwise you will force my hand. You should know the consequence of that." A Heaven Saint Master was far different than an Earth Saint Master. It didn't matter if that person had only just become a Heaven Saint Master. An Earth Saint Master wouldn't be a match for them. The group from the Changyang clan had stone for faces, as they looked at the power in front of them. But Changyang Ba did not step back and instead spoke. We will not hand him over. Saya's eyes grew cold for a moment before snorting. A large amount of power began to radiate from his body and pressure the men from the Changyang clan mercilessly. Against such power, the Changyang clan's Saint Masters and Great Saint Masters grew deathly pale in the face. Unable to even take a step back, they began to cough blood from their lips. The strength of a Heaven Saint Master was simply something they could not endure. The remaining men that were still standing now were the dozen Earth Saint Masters from the Changyang clan. Each one grit their teeth in pain, but their attempt to endure such power was incredibly taxing on their energy. While Changyang Ba was the leader of the clan, he only had the strength of a great Saint Master. Within the manor, Jian Chen's eyes had a fierce glint to them. Although his aunts here weren't able to understand what was happening, he himself could see the outside situation clearly. He would not allow for the Heaven Saint Master of the Huayan sect to do as he pleased like this. Jian Chen walked toward the outside with a dark look, but before he could take several steps, a strong arm blocked his path before the sound of his mother could be heard. Xiang'er, where are you going? Listen to your mother and stay here. Bai Yintian's face grew even more concerned. In the past, she had wished every day and night that she would finally be able to see her son, and now that wish had finally come true. But not even 24 hours after his return, the Huayan sect had arrived in front of their gates, causing Bai Yintian to feel exceedingly worried about losing her beloved son again. Mother, your son does not fear the Huayan sect. Please let me go. Jianchen spoke. Absolutely not. Bai Yintian had been absolute with her words without any room for discussion. Both of her hands grabbed at Jianchen's arm and lamented. Xiang'er, please listen to your mother's words. Please be obedient and stay here. The Huayan sect will be taken care of by your father. Mother, your child isn't as weak as he was years before. The Huayan sect will definitely not harm your son. Jianchen explained. Xiang'er, don't speak such foolish words. How are you strong enough to fight the Huayan sect? Listen to your mother, stay here and do not leave my side. Bai Yintian pleaded with tears flowing from her eyes. Seeing the pleading look on his mother's face, Jianchen sighed to himself. His heart had softened since his return, and he couldn't bear to see his mother hurt. Fine then. Mother, your child will stay here. Outside the courtyard, Saya smiled at the struggling men from the Changyang clan. I will ask you one last time, will you hand him over or not? If you wish to take someone from my Changyang clan, you will never see our doors open to you. The honor of my Changyang clan will not be so easily trampled over by you. If you wish to start a war, then continue at it. Changyang Ba spoke. Although the Huayan sect had 3 Heaven Saint Masters that had plenty of power, Changyang Ba still did not have any hint of fear. Seems like you'll have to taste some pain before you turn obedient. Saya's eyes grew cold as he extended both of his hands. All of the fire elements in the world began to gather around him, as an indication that he was about to attack. Forward everyone. The Earth Saint Masters from the Changyang clan let out a loud cry, and formed their saint weapons from the saint force that exploded from their bodies. In a flash, they charged at Saya, and brought their saint weapons toward him in several different areas. Saya had only just made the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master, so the world energy was still unfamiliar to him. With all the fire elements in the world still gathering around him, Saya could only abandon his move in order to bring out his own saint weapon to defend himself against the dozen Earth Saint Masters. Both sides clashed with a tremendous explosion of energy, causing damage to the courtyards of the Changyang clan. However, a Heaven Saint Master was a Heaven Saint Master in the end. The difference between one and an Earth Saint Master was unable to be made up for. With Saya's strike, he easily knocked back the Earth Saint Masters. However, the Earth Saint Masters didn't stop there. With loud shouts, tremendous power exploded from their bodies, increasing their strengths 3-folds instantaneously. With another charge, the dozen saint weapons blocked off any escape path for Saya. Seeing the group of elders suddenly gain a tremendous boost in strength, Saya had a shocked look on his face. Growing serious, the saint weapon in his hand flashed like lightning as he began to fight earnestly with the group. The sounds of weapons hitting other weapons could be heard loud and clear. With each strike, a ripple of energy blew about the courtyard and brought it to an even worse state. Despite the tough battle, the dozen Earth Saint Masters from the Changyang clan were able to temporarily ward off the Heaven Saint Master Saya. Seeing how he was having so much trouble with the dozen Earth Saint Masters, Saya felt that this was a bit embarrassing, especially with the Huayan sect right there to see them. With a loud shout he spoke, "If you are this stubborn about the matter, then don't blame me for being impolite." Saya immediately began to go all out and used the explosive energy of his Heaven Saint Master strength. Hitting each Earth Saint Master's saint weapon with his own, he managed to send them flying back with blood spilling from their mouths. As a result, the Earth Saint Masters were all injured one after another by Saya. Blood flew out of their mouths. Each one of the men who had been fighting with him on equal ground before were quickly defeated. Changyang Ba's face grew difficult to look at as well. A Heaven Saint Master was far stronger than an Earth Saint Master. Even a dozen Earth Saint Masters working together weren't enough to pose a challenge for him. These elders were the strongest Earth Saint Masters the Changyang clan had to offer. And if they were not enough, the Changyang clan had no other immediate solution. Saya let out a cold smile as he regarded the dozen Earth Saint Masters. Without looking, he said, "Chung Fei, call out some people to grab the man. If anyone stops them, spare them no mercy." "Yes, master." The patriarch spoke joyously before commanding several people to go search the manor. Within Changyanghu's room, Jian Chen's handsome face hardened as a large amount of killing intent radiated from his eyes. Just as he was about to move out of his mother's grasp, his face suddenly slackened and eased up. At that moment, before the men the Huayan sect had commanded could enter the manor, a loud whistling sound could be heard as a fiery figure came blazing toward them from the horizon. Even from far away, the amount of power it radiated was potent enough to scorch the clouds in the sky. Saya's face grew shocked as he hissed, "Not good, Chang Wuji is back." Chapter 442. Power. Saya's words caused the patriarch to look shocked as well. He had a deep fear of Chang Wuji, since he knew that at the northern stronghold, Chang Wuji had used a heaven-tier battle skill to kill 2 Heaven Saint Masters. This to him was an incredibly shocking fact. Quickly, a cyan-robed man came descending from the sky to the ground and landed in front of the Changyang clan in opposition to the Huayan sect. "Changbai, you finally returned." Changyang Ba had a happy look to his face as he looked at the new elder. He was excited because Changbai was a Heaven Saint Master. Now that he had returned, they were able to defend the clan against Saya and prevent the Huayan sect from being able to look through the manor as they pleased. Not only would his 4th child be saved, but their honor would remain safe as well. At the most crucial moment, Changbai suddenly returned to save Changyang Ba by tossing him a rope to grab hold of. The heart that had leaped into his throat finally fell back down, and even the other Earth Saint Masters gave a sigh in relief. There was finally a Heaven Saint Master that could help them. Chang Wuji gave a hard look as he surveyed the broken courtyard around him, and then to the pale white elders. Upon seeing their wounds, Chang Wuji's eyes gained a baleful aura as he spoke, "Leader, just what happened here?" Walking forward he spoke, "Changbai, yesterday Xiang'er suddenly returned home. The Huayan sect somehow heard news of his return and came to capture him." "What? The 4th master has returned home?" Changbai's face grew shocked. There had been no sign of Jianchen for several years after he left. At one point, Changbai had even doubted that Jianchen would ever come back. He didn't expect that after so long his 4th master would abruptly come back. This was something that he felt was extremely unexpected. Changyang Ba nodded his head with a faint smile. Xiang'er suddenly came back from who knows where. After being lost for so long, he has returned safe and sound. He's back, that's all that matters. Changbai's face lit up with happiness. Jianchen had been a talented genius that Changbai had huge expectations for. He had even looked after Jianchen while growing up, so his feelings for him were rather deep. Chang Wuji stifled the happiness in his heart and glared at the Huayan sect with a dangerous look. With a furious voice he spoke, "Although the master isn't here, our Changyang clan will not be so easily bullied. Huayan sect, remove yourself from my sight. With that, Chang Bai's arms clenched the air, causing a wave of world energy to gather at an alarming rate. Then with a push outward, the energy flew toward the Huayan sect. Against such a strong blow, the men from the Huayan sect weren't able to defend themselves at all. Each one flew into the sky and fell outside the courtyards, but several Earth Saint Masters somehow managed to defend themselves. Even the newly advanced Heaven Saint Master Saya found it difficult to resist. Both of his feet dragged against the ground, leaving behind deep skid mark from his backward momentum. Chang Bai's control of the world energy was exceedingly strong and fine-tuned. There hadn't been any form of damage to the surrounding area. He had already been in the Heaven Saint Master realm for many years, so his strength far outstripped that of Saya. Seeing that he was unable to defend against such a blow from Chang Wuji, Saya's face grew ugly while fear crept into his heart. Chang Wuji had been a secretive person and was not counted within the top 10 experts of the Jessen Kingdom. Only those of the Changyang clan had known that Chang Bai was a hidden expert. If it were not for the Four Kingdoms, his strength would have never been known to anyone outside of the clan. Chang Wuji's eyes fell upon Saya with a little surprise. I believe you are called Saya? I didn't think that you would become a Heaven Saint Master. But because you've injured my Changyang clan, don't blame me for being impolite. The honor of my Changyang clan cannot be so easily trampled upon. With that, Chang Wuji's right hand clenched the air, causing all of the world energy around him to transform into fire, the strongest of the 6 elements in terms of offensive might. Chang Wuji's speed at gathering the fire elements was extremely fast. In an instant, he had formed a giant sword of fire that flew toward Saya. Blanching, Saya knew that as a recent Heaven Saint Master, he was not a match for Chang Wuji. Without hesitation, Saya instantly took out his saint weapon to attack the fire sword. Bang! A large wave of energy exploded outward after the initial collision, covering the entire area within its spread. At the same time, a faint red glow could be seen protecting the entire Changyang clan. Even the walls to the manor were protected from the energy wave. Saya let out a mouthful of blood and quickly became pale before staggering back. Although he was a Heaven Saint Master, the difference between the two was far too much, if he couldn't even handle a single blow. The disciples of the Huayan sect had been caught in the blast as well. When the wave of fire had engulfed them, several of the men had lost their lives while many others had barely escaped with their lives. However, they themselves were in a sorry position with their clothes burned completely away. In an instant, the previously winning Huayan sect fell into disarray from Chang Wuji's appearance. Chang Wuji's strength caused the entire Huayan sect to go quiet with dark expressions. Suddenly, 2 giant forces of power came flying forward from far away. As they approached, they slowly dropped down in front of the Changyang manor. These 2 men looked to be 70-year-old elders with white robes and bright eyes. However, their faces were scrunched up in anger as they looked forward. However, the moment the Huayan sect's patriarch saw these 2 elders, he let out a look of joy and immediately knelt down. I pay my respects to the grand elders. The entire group of disciples from the Huayan sect immediately followed suit and greeted the 2 elders. Their voices were extremely respectful and shook the sky. The 2 grand elders looked ahead of them for a moment before one of them spoke up. Cheng Fei, what is going on here? After asking, the patriarch explained the entire story to the 2 elders. Upon listening, the 2 elders grew quiet for a moment. If it was in the past, the Huayan sect wouldn't allow for such treatment from the Changyang clan, and would have beaten them all to death a long time ago. Now that Chang Wuji's strength had been revealed after the events at the northern stronghold, the 2 elders were secretly afraid of him, and didn't dare belittle the Changyang clan. To be able to kill 2 Heaven Saint Masters wasn't the work any regular person could do. Chang Wuji even had a heaven-tier battle skill, which placed heavy pressure on the 2 grand elders. One of the grand elders looked to Chang Wuji wearily. Chang Wuji, with one move you've killed a dozen of my Huayan sect. You are being too fierce. Chang Wuji let out a snort. Your Huayan sect has caused such a mess within my Changyang clan, and injured a dozen of our clan's strongest. How should such a debt be repaid? Chang Wuji took a step forward with a head held high for the two experts, ready to fight if need be. The two grand elders from the Huayin sect were taken back for a moment, but they did not shirk away. One of the two immediately explained, I've heard of the matter from those years ago. The fault lies with Changyang Xiangtian. He cut off the arm of our patriarch's son, Chengmingxiang. If we tally things up, it is the fault of your Changyang clan. Our Huayin sect only wishes to do things right. You jest. The matter had already been investigated into. Everything was because of the instigation your Chengmingxiang caused with our fourth master. If there's anyone to blame, blame Chengmingxiang. A middle great saint having his arm cut off by a primary saint is too laughable. Chang Wuji spoke without holding back. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.